meeting.
We are live, ladies and gentlemen. He's a good guy.
He's one.
He's one of the good ones.
He's one of the best I've ever had this.
He is. He really is. That's why I married him.
Well, it's pretty good.
Late this morning, thank God.
I did that, yes.
How are you, ma'am?
That's not bad at all. That's actually my favorite Bobby's book. It's like most of mine, Chris Craft.
Are you Mr. Davis?
Chairman?
No, don't get up, don't get up. Oh, no. Yeah, see, if you sit down, we're gonna sing lines. So.
I can't squat, my knees
You
won't
got a
let me
minute?
squat like
I'll make
this.
sure you got time.
My knees don't let me squat like this anymore.
Oh, it's fine.
So how's the season, Joe? How's the season going? Wow. You know, that's,
So anyway, I just wanted to do.
I can remember when I was in sports.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you remember, we have a timekeeper. No one but board members talking. The timekeeper will let us know when 30 seconds are left. We're starting in District 3. Now, who is that?
Joe Smith.
Joe Smith is not here, so we'll go to District 4.
Hello,
Hello.
Sherry Ford here. We're about to get started. You need to move your camera just a little bit. We're just getting the bottom half of your face. All right. A little bit higher.
Okay. And I'm not seeing y'all there.
Oh, there you go. Hit the video thing down there. There you go. All right, see us now?
There you go.
Awesome.
I see you.
Dr. Johnson, welcome. We are going to introduce ourselves very briefly, starting in District 1. We have one member unable to be here today, but starting with Ms. Thurman, District 1.
Rhonda Thurman, District 1.
Okay.
Kathy Lennon, District 2.
Tiffany Robinson, District 4. Carissa Jones, District 5.
Joe Galloway, District 6.
Joe Wingate, District 7.
David Testerman, District 8.
And Steve Highlander, District 9. Joe Smith is not able to be here. He has a prior engagement, but he will be looking in on the live streams. And would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you would like to be considered for the position?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to have this discussion with you. From a personal standpoint, just a little bit about my background. I grew up in Macon, Georgia. I went to public schools in Macon. I graduated from Lanier High School, which was an all-boys public ROTC school. So I actually went through the ROTC program in Lanier, Macon. That gave me the opportunity to actually attend college on an ROTC scholarship. Growing up in Macon, Georgia, I was the first in my family to ever go to college. My mother,
We're losing your audio.
who, you know, son was a printer in the newspaper. Can y'all hear me?
We can now. We missed that last sentence. Could you start
Okay.
again?
Well, I was talking about, Mother's Day just recently, yesterday reminded me of the effect that my mother had on me. She was a produce clerk and a cashier at a grocery store, and my father was a printer. But the most important thing is I was a product of the public school system in Macon, Georgia. I went to college in Macon to Mercer, then went in the military. You've seen all this, I think, on my resume from what took place from that standpoint. Proud to say that my children went to public schools in Atlanta and in DeKalb County. I've had the opportunity of working around the world. I've been in business for 30 years now, and one of the things I'm most prideful for is having created a lot of jobs for the different businesses that I've created. Several years ago, I made the decision to pivot from business and actually focus on education. So to get, I think, some level of qualification in that area, I actually went and recently completed a doctorate in education. I also have a master's in business from Emory University. And the reason I'm hopeful that you guys will see me is because I'd like to make a difference. I'm at a point in my life where I don't need a job, I don't need a position, but what I am very focused on is engaging with some people like-minded to do something very positive, and I don't think there's anything more important than helping the next generation of children, students that are entrusted to our care.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll start our questions. District 3 is not here, so we'll start with District 4.
Hi, Dr. Johnson. I'm Tiffany Robinson, and
Okay.
I too am the first person in my family to go to college, so I appreciate you sharing your story with us. You have a very untraditional resume and a very untraditional background compared to a number of people that apply for a superintendent position. And so I was curious, why did you decide to apply for this position in Hamilton County in Tennessee? What drew you to us, and what challenges do you see that you would be tasked with overcoming if you were to be given the position?
Well, I think the most important challenge right now is to add stability to the system and to play a role in bringing stability. I think that anytime an organization is in a state of uncertainty with regard to its leadership, that things just don't get done. With regard to what drew me to Hamilton County, very candidly, it was not on my radar screen. I was not looking for this type of an opportunity, but the search firm, Coleman Liu, I had been in conversation with them about some other education leadership opportunities, and they called me and said, you know, here's a very unique and special challenge where, having met you, I think they thought my skills could be brought to bear, not from an education, let's call it an educator perspective, because, you know, there's certain people that much more qualified than I am to be educators. But when you're talking about, you know, the leadership of this organization, you're talking about motivating people, you're talking about setting priorities, you're talking about resource allocation, you're talking about working through the political dynamics, you're talking about managing a $400 million budget, you're talking about, problem solving. I think that's probably if somebody were to ask me what's my number one,
Losing you again.
But that's kind of a long discussion.
Okay, we missed that whole last sentence about why you would say that you would be doing that position.
Well, could you repeat the question just so I make sure I get it right, please?
Sure. I was curious what challenges you saw before us as a school system.
Okay. All right. Well, I think I said the biggest challenge, I think, is bringing stability to the organization and to the expectation of the stakeholders within the community as to what to look towards and what to look for. And then I think your other part of the question was why Hamilton County and my interest, and the answer was because it was presented to me as a potential good fit for my historical background.
Thank you.
Thank you.
District 5?
Hi, Dr. Johnson. I represent District 5, and right now in our district, we have, in our district overall, we have 5 schools that are being looked at from the state perspective about being taken over to improve their performance, their achievement levels, so forth and so on. I'm pretty sure you may be aware that you've done the research about us. So we know that academic problems are deeply rooted by socioeconomic influences. So what would be your plans to address the current issues of the achievement gap in our inner city and priority schools? And could you give me any example or a best practice that you feel like could apply to that? Or an experience that you've had that you can take and apply to that in a school setting?
The question, based upon the research, I think you're looking at the possibility of either being taken over by the state, but I think the real agenda that's being discussed right now is the Empower Schools concept, to use create a partnership between the state and the school system and an outside organization. When you look at the elements of that plan, the plan is a very good plan. The question, of course, will become how quickly be implemented and how assuredly can it be implemented. So the real issue in my mind's eye is to focus on that immediately. And the parallel I draw will be from the business side. When we, in the business sector, and I'm a banker by training, we in the business of organization, what we would do is we marshal specifically on that issue, and I would use the same parallel for the school system in terms of what needs to be done.
Okay, so, okay.
Do you need a little more on
Yeah,
that?
could you just repeat that again, because you went out on me?
Yeah, what you were, I think you were referring to your 5 priority schools that are subject to the possible takeover by the state.
Right.
And I think that what the discussion right now is an alternative to a takeover by the state, which is the empowerment zone, using the partnership concept that has been set forward. And that's a very good objective and a very good plan, in my opinion. The issue is how fast can you move on it, and how assuredly can you move on it. And the parallel I draw to my business side is when you have a problem situation or have a situation that needs, specific improvement, you marshal dedicated resources to that, and you make sure that you start with an understanding of what's good for the students, what's the situation of the parents related to the students, because in those situations you get a lot of emotion as well as facts at play. Then you deal with the teacher principals. So net of it is it just needs more horsepower brought to bear on it, and it needs to be brought to bear sooner rather than later.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
District 6?
Yes, Joe Galloway, thank you for being with us, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you.
We have problems sometimes keeping quality administrators, teachers in our system because bordering counties just pay them more to begin with, and even after 3 or 4 years, the salaries are higher. What would you do to address turnover to retention rate in our district?
The easy thing to say is pay them more money. But what I've learned in my life is that just paying more money doesn't always get you the result that you want. What people are looking for from a leader, they're looking for a clear understanding of what they're expected to do, and they're looking for consistent and very meaningful feedback on how well they're doing. And while you've got to deal with the money, you've also got to deal with the reality of the availability of money.
Your audio's going out again.
Teachers and principals are passionate about what they do. So it's not always about the money. You got to be respectful of the money equation, but you got to make sure that they're appreciated every single day by as many people as possible about the good that they're doing.
Thank you.
Dr. Johnson, this is Joe Wingate from District 7. We kind of have a unique, I think, opportunity right now in our community in that if you've done any research, you'll know that job growth here has not really been an issue. We've got a lot of industry here and more coming. And because of that, there's been a lot of emphasis placed on workplace development, along with getting our students ready for higher education. But also because of that, we've got a chance for some unique partnerships between higher ed, our school system, and industry. Have you researched that at all? Can you tell me what you know about our partnerships and our attempted partnerships with some of the industry that is moving into our area?
Well, what I do understand is that you, like you just said, you've got a greater demand for people that are career ready than you have, supply. That one of, whether it's Volkswagen or some of the other folks, that they're looking to the school system to be able to produce those people. And I guess my general comment about that would be, a school system first and foremost has to help people get life ready, and then career ready, and then college ready. And I think, if you keep that priority in order, where you're dealing with getting people life ready, career ready, and then for those who want to go to college, college ready, you can really make some things happen. You've got a wonderful technical college there in Chattanooga. You've actually got a great secondary school and university.
Losing your audio again.
Tie in between the school system and the university jobs.
Okay, the whole last half
Were you
of
able to hear
that.
me?
No, sir, the whole last half of it we could not hear. The first of it we did.
Okay, well, basically to summarize what I said was that there's a tremendous opportunity to integrate the public school system of Hamilton County with the technical college even earlier in the the grade level, so to speak, even starting as early as 10th grade, to start getting people ready for career ready, at the same time getting them life ready, and then ultimately for people who want to be college ready. But the net of it is it's a engagement on the way as a school system is to get people ready to earn an income.
Thank you very much.
Number 8.
By the way, I want to apologize if the technology is not quite what it used to be. I'm actually in London right now, and so I'm really impressed that we're able to have this conversation. And I also want to admit to you guys that this is the first time I've had this number of people call me doctor. I
sure
actually
the
got my doctorate, can confirm, last effect. And so I'm still kind of getting used to it, if you want to know the truth.
Me too.
All right.
District 8?
Yes. David Testerman, just have a question for you about issue that we've been struggling with for many years. And that's our deferred maintenance program of our buildings and infrastructure. How are you going to pull that miracle off?
Well, that's a great question. I went up to Chattanooga after I put my hat in the ring here and drove around and looked at your schools. And I happened to, in one of my other businesses, actually own quite a bit of property. We have senior housing that we take care of senior folks. And I learned a long time ago that deferred maintenance is really something that can bite you if you're not careful. The answer is each situation is going to have to be looked at. First and foremost, we got to make sure that the safety issues are there. Then we got to look at the comfort issues, because students, first of all, have got to be protected at all costs, and then they've got to be in comfortable environments in order to study and do well. It starts with roofs. I mean, you got to make sure that you don't have a leaky roof, because if you've got a leaky roof, everything else starts deteriorating pretty fast. But the answer to your question is, I've heard some what I would consider to be significant, staggering numbers regarding what the deferred maintenance that may actually be. I actually talked with a person that works for me in one of my other businesses that used to run the buildings for the Columbus, Georgia school system, and asked him what would be a reasonable deferred maintenance situation, and actually started getting a little bit of a handle on it, but quite frankly, I don't know how big the order is that's got to get filled. I will tell you that in some other situations similar to that, when I worked, we were able to get people within the community to basically volunteer labor and volunteer materials to assist. And so it gets back to, can you get the parent engagement at the school level? Parents, can play a vital role if you engage them. But at the same time, you can't expect them to reach in their pocket and pay for a new roof, for example.
Thank you.
Dr. Johnson, Steve Highlander, District 9, and as long as the Queen refers to you as Dr. Johnson, we will too.
Well, I got to tell you, Chairman, it feels pretty good.
Thank you, sir. I'm a little awkward with mine myself. Let me ask you something. You alluded to the fact that, speaking of Coleman Lieu, that you're looking at other jobs or other positions are looking at you. Do you have other positions in mind? And if so, where would we rank in line with them?
Chairman, I didn't quite hear. I think what you asked was looking at other positions. I think that was the question you asked.
Yes, sir. And where would Hamilton County stand if you do have others that you're looking at as well?
Well, I want to be clear. I'm not looking for a job and I'm not looking for a position. I'm looking for where I can make a meaningful purpose. So the net of it, I think you guys meet on a Thursday normally, and I know you've got other candidates you got to go through, and then I know we've got some in-person interviews. But to put it in clear perspective, if y'all decided on a Thursday that y'all wanted me there, I'd be there, the next Monday morning. So I'm not pursuing with any significance any of the other positions. One job I am being, I'd say, considered for is a national level job. But at the moment, I'm focused on Hamilton County. I mean, that's what I'm investing my time and understanding towards.
So hypothetically, if the national job came open, would you prefer us over them?
I think the national.
Not a fair question. That's not a fair question. Forgive me. That's not a fair question. Thank you, sir.
I will answer the question here because it's not fair
It's not a fair question. You don't need to answer.
decide what they may say, oops, not what I want to do. So if I'm selected, then this is the job I'm going to take.
Thank you.
At the same time, I'm certainly keeping my ears open, but I'm not actively pursuing anything else.
Thank you, sir. That was well stated. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
District 1?
Yes, this is on the Thurman, Dr. Johnson. District 1, I've been a small business person for the last 41 years, so I appreciate the fact that you are a businessman. I found out from dealing with people in the education field, we look at things a whole lot differently than they do. To them, the answer to everything with education people is money. And in business, you can't do that because you run all your customers off, and they can't run all the customers off because the customers are taxpayers. But we have run a lot of ours off here in Hamilton County because we go to private school. But there's a lot of things about you that I like. One thing that you're not looking for a position, you're not looking for a job. You really want to make a difference, and I can really appreciate that. Also, I like the fact that about your military background. And then something was brought up earlier about the teachers wanting a pay raise. The teachers that I talked to have talked about more than a pay raise, they would like to have discipline in their classroom.
Right.
That would mean more than a pay raise to them, and that is something that would not cost a penny in this county. And I just wonder I know you've had to look around and see, not just in our school system, but school systems across the United States, about how discipline has seemed to have taken a side street. How do you feel about that, and how do you feel like maybe you could kind of rein that in and give the teachers a break? I think the teachers would appreciate that, and I know the parents would.
Well, that's a great That's a really great question. And one of the things I think that your teachers will tell you is that the behavioral issues that they're encountering are actually starting at much earlier ages. Actually, kindergarten, first graders, second graders are bringing to the classroom behavioral issues that never before in the past where you thought the behavioral issues would start. You always felt like, well, to get into the 6th, 7th grade, 8th, 9th, that's where you get your core behavioral issues. And they are very, very important and very significant. My daughter is a high school teacher, a public school in Louisiana, and she's brought to my attention just her willingness and deep desire to contribute in the classroom. Not so much her, but some of her fellow teachers. Gets sidetracked by one or two misbehaving, and not just lightly misbehaving, seriously misbehaving type students. So the first thing is we got to make sure that the children at the early stages who are entering the school system understand what is an acceptable norm, and then we got to carry that forward. And then, quite frankly, the teachers have got to get backed up fully. So that's a long-winded way of saying it's a day in, day out job to make sure that those teachers have the support and if you've got unruly students, they just need to be removed from the environment. I don't know exactly what the legal issues associated with that are, but they've got to be put in a situation where they're not disrupting the learning capability of other students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, talking about my daughter real quickly, one of the things that's really been interesting to me is how much teachers reach, talk about pay raises. One of the pay raises for teachers is just to fix it so that they don't have to reach in their own pocket to pay for the materials that they need in their classroom to do a good job. I've been really surprised to learn about how much teachers actually financially contribute to subsidize their classroom needs.
That's why we need a businessman to get the budget in order. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
And by the way, on that point, and I know one thing I will absolutely do is look at every single dollar that's being spent and every single person that's in the system and what they're doing to add value. Because, the people that would be looking to me as your superintendent, you as the board that I would be accountable to, and the county commissioners want to know that there's good stewardship and fiduciary responsibility engaged.
Thank you. District 2?
That's me. Hello, Dr. Johnson. Thank you for being with us all the way from London this evening. I'd like to ask, what are the 3 most significant components that make a school system successful? And what role does the superintendent play in facilitating the achievement of these components?
Well, we got to remember, the only reason that we're here in the first place is for the students. So first and foremost, the students are the most important component of the school system, and many times people forget that that's what it's all about. The parents, parents are very, very vested in, incredibly vested in what's going on in the schools, and the facts don't sometimes nearly matter as much as as basically the emotions. So you got your students, you got your parents, and then of course your teachers, and the whole system from the board, the central office, the principals, the assistant principal is there to make sure that the teachers engage with the students, and indirectly they're always going to be engaging with the parents. So students, parents, and teachers are the 3 components.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bennett, how do you want us to go start over again? Or
You've got plenty of time to go.
Okay, start again, please. You have another question? In order?
Dr. Johnson, it's very clear to me what your talents are and what you bring to this position. But what makes you an untraditional candidate is that your resume is very different than the others applying alongside you, meaning that you don't have as much classroom experience as maybe some of our other candidates. So my assumption is that you probably have a dream team in mind of the team that you would surround yourself with if you were to receive this position. So I'd love to know who's your dream team and what are the positions and what do they bring to the table that maybe you don't bring to the table?
Well, thank you. First of all, I'm not going to discount, the talent that's already in the system until I know what the talent in the system is. But I will, as any, let's say, good business person or executive looking at taking on a new challenge, the first thing you do is, what talent are you going to bring to bear that's going to complement your own? What I'm very, very good at is identifying good people, putting them in the jobs, and basically becoming a servant leader to empower them. I will tell you that I've already identified 2 deputy superintendents from school systems that have 40,000 students in each one as people that I would seriously consider augmenting my talents. But again, I say that from the standpoint that I need to know what's in the system today before I say for certain that that there would be a need to bring additional talent in. But I'm entering the position with the belief that if the system was perfect today, I wouldn't be talking to you. And so that there's going to be a need to take a good hard look at just an augmentation. And what I've learned over the years is that even if you have great people in current positions, if you do the same thing over and over and expect a different result with the same people, it's just not going to happen. So very candidly, we take a very, very hard look at complementary resources and quite candidly, people that know the classroom, know the principalship, know what that's about.
Question. Okay, next, please. Ms. Jones? Do you have anything, or you pass? Okay, District 6?
Yes, Dr. Johnson, if you were to attend one of our board meetings, at the beginning of the board meeting, we have schools recognized, students recognized, teachers recognized. I mean, it's an ongoing thing each month, and there's so many good things going on in our system. But when you read about in the news about our system, it's always about it's failing and it's broken. The publicity is terribly negative, and yet if you go to the schools, you see good things. We have a lady that's public relations we have a newsletter that goes out that's as good as any I've ever seen every week for people that want to know about the schools. But we need something to bring a positive public perception to our system. What would you do there?
Well, first of all, you've hit the nail on the head. You're only actually as good as you're perceived as being, and perception, as we all know, is reality. And I've seen some things happen in some other situations where you use the TV media to help to broadcast that. Probably the biggest issue is you can't recognize all of the good things often enough. I mean, you got 4,000 students, you got 30, more than 3,000 faculty, and even if you recognize 10, 15, 20, 50 of them, you're still not carrying the message broad and deep enough as to how many really good people are in the system. So the net of it is you gotta win the trust of the press. The press has got to
We lost your audio.
appreciative of what the good things are happening. You've got to and you got to put a very, very strong, I won't call it a PR focus for the sake of PR, but I was thinking about, everybody probably watches Blue Bloods on TV. And if we're talking about Tom Selleck, and trust me, all the women in my family like watching him. But I'm always impressed with the Deputy Commissioner of Public Information and the good job that person does to help to get the word out. So the reality is, it's a profession that requires specialized attention, and I suspect in your school system it's probably not something that's been given a full measure of attention, and that's what's necessary.
Thank you.
Okay, next, please. Mr. Wingate?
Dr. Johnson, Joe Wingate again. I heard you say something about servant leadership, and leadership's a big deal to me. I think most people in the room know that. I've said a lot about it, or tried to anyway, and feel like that we've struggled with that in all phases of our system, central office, building principalships, even into the classroom. Tell me, and I know this is a real vanilla question, but I think it's important. Talk to me about leadership. What's it look like, and what's effective leadership look like?
Well, as you know, there are many different types of leadership styles, and we could, go through the discussion of that. But what I mean by servant leadership, from my perspective, is that first and foremost, you focus on, who are you accountable to, and what's expected with regard to that accountability. And accountability doesn't mean just reporting on an issue or reporting on a problem. It means owning that problem. And then it means marshaling the resources to examine that problem, find solutions to that problem. And very often it's done, and if it's done the best way, it's done in a collaborative style. However, collaboration at some point in time, the buck stops here, and you got to really take the decision and move forward with it. But when you move forward with it, you find champions that you can empower, and then you give them the authority to act, and then you give them the support to act. So, to me, it's a multifaceted approach to identifying and addressing needs and problems, and doing it in the context of who you're accountable to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tessman, anything else? Sir? Thanks. Steve Highland again, Dr. Johnson. How would you made some really good comparisons. How would you go about partnering with the board and with the community, and with the parents and the community to make decisions?
Well, first, from the people that are sitting around that table in terms of what's worked and what hasn't worked, but each of y'all were put in that, basically various districts. So the first and foremost thing is to listen to each one of you and listen to what your voice is saying with regard to your districts. And then you've got the mayor's office, who has certainly a deep desire to have people appreciate that the whole system is working. When I say the system, I'm talking about the county government, and likewise with the commissioners. So, it's a very intense discussion interplay between your board, the commissioners, community leaders, both cultural and business leaders. So, everything talks with conversations, and not every conversation has to be. Well, I know you got to have open records in your scenario, but a lot of one-on-one conversations can help to uncover what some of the more deep-rooted issues are, and quite frankly, also identify the solutions. So, long-winded way of saying you got to talk to a lot of people all the time.
Thank you. That's very good. Ms. Thurman?
Yes, accountability, that's the word I was awaiting here, and I've heard it a couple of times, somebody has to be accountable. And not just our school systems across the United States, we have a lot of people graduating who can't read, things of that nature. So I'm glad to hear about the accountability piece. I know you can't say right now how you would hold people accountable, but that's something that I would really like to say, like in business, like you said, if you keep doing the same thing over and over, you'll go broke. Not only are you an idiot, but you will also go broke. You'll be a broke idiot. And so, the school system is really bad about doing things over and over. As a matter of fact, I ran everyone a copy of a schools on notice from back in 2001, 2002, and they did exactly the same thing then that the state is wanting to do to the schools again. And I'm like, the people never learn, it never end. But like I say, the accountability piece was something I was waiting to hear, and that was going to be my question, but I heard you say something about accountability. But I will tell you right now, if you will bring Tom Selleck in as deputy superintendent, I'll offer you tonight.
I'm talking about the accountability question, the issue on accountability. I'll just amplify. Accountability starts with yourself, myself, I mean, I will probably be the hardest critic of myself, than anybody. And so when you get into the accountability issue, question, you've got to really, you almost have to get everybody to the point where they don't want to let their colleagues down. You know, somebody earlier talked about the military example. In the military, good performing units in the military operate well because they don't want to let their teammates and they don't want to let their comrades, they don't want to let their buddies down. And ultimate accountability is peer-to-peer accountability, not hierarchical accountability. And so that's the type of leadership that you want to, and the type of culture that you want to establish.
Thank you. Ms. Lehman?
Yes, you're superintendent and you're walking around visiting schools and you walk into a classroom. What does the ideal successful classroom look like to you? What do you want to see going on in that classroom?
I want to see bright eyes and smiling faces and children that are happy to be there. And intrigued to be there. Got stress lines across his or her face for technical problems. I want to see a clean environment. I don't want to see a club.
We're losing you on audio again.
Basically deferred money. There's a theory called the broken window theory, and I think most of you have probably heard of it. And that is that if you park a car in an area and it's in pristine condition, the likelihood of it being damaged is not high. But if you park a car with even a crack in the windshield, then the likelihood is that it will get vandalized. And so what happens is people are a product of their environments, and they, I know it sounds corny, but, I'm noted for walking down the street and picking up trash off the street and putting it in a trash container. And people say, why do you do that? I said, well, somebody's got to do it, so why not me? And so the answer is, first and foremost, I want to see children, students, they're just happy to be there and don't feel like they're in drudgery. And I want to see a teacher of the same mindset. And then I want to see an acceptable environment for which they're doing their daily work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson, thank you so much for your good answers, your positive responses. Could we give you about 5 minutes to either ask us questions or to give a summation or maybe a combination, whichever you prefer?
Well, first of all, I wouldn't even be presumptuous enough to ask questions because I think the questions that you've asked me, reflect certainly points of concern and interest. I know this is a little unorthodox, and I hope it doesn't backfire on me. But one of the things I think you need to know about me is, said, I'm not looking for a position, I'm not looking for a job. So bottom line is, I don't need a contract. If y'all hire me to be your superintendent, I'm going to do a fantastic job of being your superintendent. But if you decide you don't want me as a superintendent, you can invite me to leave, and I'll leave, because I saw a situation in Macon, Georgia unfold where the school system hired what was a good superintendent, didn't turn out so well, and it cost a lot of money to have that person exit. And I just thought that was, in my opinion, almost, I won't say criminal because of the contract, but at the same time, it was certainly somebody abusing the goodwill of the board and giving them a contract. So, but at the same time, I don't want you to think, well, it's an undertaking that I'm taking without complete seriousness. I'm very, very serious if I take this job on. But at the same time, I don't want you to feel like you've, and because I think, as Ms. Robinson said, I am a little bit of an unusual, unorthodox candidate. I don't want you to feel like you've taken a risk that you'll regret. So with that being said, I just want you to know that that's my mindset. I think I said it all. Students, parents, teachers, look forward to the challenge actually of the creating the infrastructure, dealing with the deferred maintenance, and I look forward to working with the various constituents. So that's basically where I am.
Thank you, sir, for your obvious heart and concern. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, this has been, by the way, the first time in my life I've ever done a Skype interview, so I hope it came across okay. I really enjoyed, just in this short time getting to know y'all, so, again, if you do your diligence, check me out. I think you'll find that everything I said rings from our heart.
Thank you, sir, again, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Short break here. Or get sick. We start in the cooler over there. Usually second round question.
I barely watch TV.
I'll second.
It's kind of interesting, wasn't
My grandson thinks FaceTime is live. He's 2.5. If he hears some ringtone, he has to run him, regardless of where he is. No, it's in Atlanta.
Okay.
Ms. Ford, thank you for getting the effort today to do this. It's nice. I knew you did. Thank you very much. Can I get anyone some coffee? Want to warm your hands up? Sir? Mr. Johnson, are you, sir? How are you, Ms. Kennedy?
Doing well, how are you, sir?
Please ask if I need to send him some of the links of what we do every day.
If you want. I'm not sure she believes that or not. Well, I can really close up. Do we want to, am I going
Oh yeah, it's live streaming right now. You're like right in the middle. Yeah.
I can really close this? Because what's hidden after it's not, it's not
You might attack
legally, you don't take that out.
I mean, you do.
So they're gonna watch this.
I got you today.
take risks. My question is, tell us on Thursday, what does that mean?
It's a meeting on Thursday. I think once you carry your that was not that they said in the home, right here. So we said that was not what she said. She was here, that was not what she said.
This is not a deliberation, I talked to her Friday afternoon.
It's almost like.
She said it would be the board.
Not our business. What I'm doing it as. I mean, they're gonna have
I told her. I said, I really don't think I'm going to we'll see you on this Thursday when you come. I said, we need a month. She said it was a month outside.
No, people say it now.
People, I'll say now. Chris, I didn't get that Have you talked to Steve yet about
You know. Military now
We'll find some of it. And Scott, you want to add a big pull right do that?
You don't have to graduate from this, you have to find this money. We can have it even if just over it. There's been the one
We got about 3 minutes, folks. Yes, that's it, that's it. I think that's my understanding.
All of these are gonna be brought there first, because I don't know, all of them are on the, every single one of them is several of them.
Two-minute warning, everybody.
Except for lunch, now I'm eating regular food. I want some pizza. That's pretty good. I'm a sweet person. I'm more of a salt person. You know, some chips, sauce, some alcohol, some peanuts. I put that on the sweet, some with a little sweet sauce. You want some candy? I have a whole not yet, but I was getting I thought you were getting right now. I'll wait next break. Sweet person.
1 minute, class.
Hey, girl, how are you? I'm good, how are you? Good, thanks.
Karen told me about that one Saturday. Speaking of parents, pictures, I went about 12 pictures today, so we're gonna give me each.
Hello,
Hello,
Dr. Davis.
hello,
Hello.
How are you, sir?
great, how about you all?
Just fine. We are very glad to have you and the staff interview with us. And if you would, please let us introduce ourselves, starting with District 1.
Rhonda Thurman, District 1.
Kathy Lennon, District 2.
Tiffany Robinson, District 4.
Carissa Jones, District 5.
Joe Galloway, District 6.
Joe Wingate, District 7.
David Testerman, District 8.
And Steve Highlander, District 9. Mr. Smith had a previous commitment in District 3, and so he regrets he will not be able to be here. Would you like to have a brief introduction, sir? We would love to hear from you.
Yes, sir, I would. First of all, again, good evening. I'm Clifford Davis. I want to begin by saying thank you to the Board of Education for giving me the opportunity to participate in this Skype interview session for your Superintendent of Schools position. Let me just say again, it's an honor for me to be a part of the process. As you all know, I've been a mathematics teacher, an assistant principal, also an executive director for secondary schools, an adjunct professor, and my current position as chief of staff for the Knox County Schools, where I, along with an outstanding team of educators and leaders, have had the opportunity to sort of wrestle with some of the major problems facing public school systems today in this state and across the country. And some of those issues include accountability, also the demand for dealing with underperforming schools, also scarce resources, and then tight budgets as well as a political climate that sort of consistently demands a balance between progress as well as sustainability. And the reason we have faced these challenges sort of head on is that we have 60,000 students within the Knox County Schools. And those 60,000 students, we want to make sure that those 60,000 students are afforded the opportunity to have a quality education. And given the opportunity to become your next superintendent of schools, I would like to continue the work that the board is currently doing to make sure that the 42,000 students within the Hamilton County School District receive a good quality public education. So as we go throughout this interview process this evening, I trust that you will have the opportunity to sort of hear my ideas, my thoughts about my commitment to accountability and student success through hiring and growing exemplary teachers, as well as the implementation of some great strategies that hopefully will reduce, if not eliminate, disparities in terms of educational outcomes for students as well as discipline outcomes. So that's what I hope to accomplish this evening, and at this point, I turn it back over to the board for questions.
Thank you, sir. We'll start with District 4. We'll start with 5 this time. I'm sorry.
Good evening, Dr. Davis.
Good evening.
What do you feel are the top 3 priorities needing to be addressed in Hamilton County, and how do you plan to address these top 3 priorities?
All right, in looking at the data, so just from my research, I think there are 3 major issues that are facing the school district in Hamilton County. And one is student achievement, student growth. I think that is the major issue that needs to be tackled. Also, another issue from my research is making sure that our graduates are college and career ready. And then the third issue is the need to improve the maintenance of the facilities. I think I read somewhere that there's $200 billion in deferred maintenance in terms of facilities. And so those are the 3 top issues that I would think that would immediately need to be addressed. Now, how do you go about doing that? That's the big question. That's the important piece. I'll start with student achievement. Student achievement, basically, in terms of tackling student achievement, what I want to do in this case is really hear from the community. If I were given the opportunity to be your next superintendent of schools, I would begin the process by this summer, engaging the community, going out, having community forums, having faculty forums, having student forums, engaging with the business community, and really hearing what is actually working within the Hamilton County schools. I think that's important. There's some great things going on in the school district. We need to honor those things. So I want to know what's working in Hamilton County. Then I also want to hear from those different stakeholders as to what's not working. What are the things that we need to change? And then once I've gathered that feedback, I think it's important to take that feedback and go back and work backwards and formulate a plan given that feedback, and then come back to the community with some measurable goals, objectives, share that plan with the community, and then work the plan. I think that is very, very important. Another important piece of tackling the student achievement and the student growth piece is I really would like to make sure that I visit every school. That is one of the things that you give me the opportunity to become the superintendent of the Hamilton County School District. I will be in the schools. I will be in there visiting the classrooms. I was given some advice a few years ago when I moved from the school level to central office. And this person said, in order for you to be effective at the central office level, it's important for you to know your people. Well, how do you know your people at the central office level? How do you know your people as a superintendent? You really get to know your people by conducting those school visits, really getting out there with the folks that do the important work, the teachers, they do the important work, getting out there with them and understanding what their needs are, what their challenges are, and then coming back and helping remove those roadblocks, those obstacles, and giving them the resources that are needed to be able to do their jobs effectively. Those would be the things that I would do in terms of student achievement. That's what I would do. Now, the next piece is, what about making sure that the students that are graduates, whether or not they're college and career ready, how would I tackle that issue? Well, I think the number one way that I would tackle that issue is make sure, first of all, that all of our students, well, all of our schools have a quality principal at the helm of every school. I think that's important. And then the next step is to make sure that we have quality teachers in every classroom delivering quality instruction every day. I think that's important. And then after that, the next part of tackling that piece about making sure that our students are college and career ready is to make sure that every student is afforded the opportunity to have a rigorous curriculum. I don't think it takes rocket science to really fix a school or a school district. I really don't. If you look back at my career, you will see that I've had experiences with schools that struggle, and I've been given those opportunities to really work with staff to move those schools forward. But what I would do in terms of making sure that our students are college and career ready is making sure that we do a good job of placing them. First of all, we have students within our school district We have students, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, we have a time allotment of 4.5 minutes.
All right.
And our parliamentarian has informed me that he'll let you know when 30 seconds are up and they
All right.
are up. You're doing great, thank you.
All right, so I'll make this quick and I'll wrap this up. But the bottom line is, the way I would view it in terms of the college and career ready, make sure that the students are afforded quality teachers every day and that they have a rigorous curriculum. And then in terms of the piece about the maintenance of facilities, I think it's important to, first of all, show that we're good stewards of the resources that we currently have. And by doing so, the community is willing to work with us on getting the additional resources necessary to meet the needs of our schools.
Thank you, I'll take it off my time if need be. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next.
Yes, Joe Galloway again. Thank you for being here, Dr. Davis. I just want to, you know, we're all obviously responsible for a certain number of schools in our district. As I go into the schools in my district, I see so many good things happening, but our perception in our county is not good of what's going on in schools. How do you go about bringing positive public perception to our county system?
Well, I think as the superintendent of schools, I think it's important to be an advocate for the schools, the schools in the district. I think that's very, very important. How do you go about doing that? I'll go back to something that I said earlier. I would go about being an advocate for all of the schools in the district by, number one, knowing the schools, first of all, understanding the needs of the schools, and then being able to come back and be able to advocate on behalf of the teachers and the students in those schools. And then, like you said, I think you made a great point. There are some great things going on in each and every school every day. And I think we can do a great job of advocating and sharing what's going on in those schools at board meetings, county commission meetings, wherever possible. Our website, we need to make sure that our website tells the story. We need to be the narrative of our story about what we're doing, because we make an impact every day, and most people don't get a chance to know what that impact is. I think we need to tell the story, and I think as superintendent, I think I can do that, again, by sharing that information publicly at board meetings, at county commission meetings, where it have you. So that's the way I would handle that issue.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Dr. Davis, Joe Wingate here. Many people want to compare Hamilton County and Knox County in terms of the size of our counties, the close size of our school systems. I don't think that's accurate or fair comparison. Explain to me how you feel Hamilton County and Knox County are different.
That's a good question, an excellent question. First of all, they differ geographically. That's one thing. But then also, I think one of the things that you have to really get a chance to do in order to really be able to answer that question, I really have to understand the community. Like I said, how they differ, I really would get into the community and see what the desires, the wants, the goals of the community are. And I think that will be the important part for me as superintendent, to really understand, what is it that the community wants to accomplish. Knox County, I understand, because I've been 27 years in Knox County. I understand the different things, the goals of the community, the desires of the community. And so for me, Hamilton County, to understand the differences, I really would have to get in and talk with the different stakeholders to really give you a really good answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
David Testament speaking to you. I have a question for you about teacher morale.
Yes, sir.
And building morale and its perception of community responsibility. What method would you use to change some of those things, to make morale better, bring community back into the schools, and hold their administrators and our schools responsible for it?
Well, first of all, I'll address this for just talking about administrator and teacher morale. I think our teachers and principals really do the important work. And so as a superintendent, I would make sure that, as I said earlier, that I'm out and about, that I'm in the schools, and that I get a chance to visit those schools. And one of the things that I would do it will be important to me as superintendent of schools to put one mechanism in place, and that is having a teacher advisory council or committee. I would like to put together that teacher advisory committee being representative of teachers from across the entire district, from every single district, every grade band, and from each one of the disciplines. Have those teachers meet with me on a monthly basis to be able to hear what their concerns are, and then let them be a part of the decision-making process. I think that is very, very important. Teachers do the work. They do the heavy lifting. Why should they not have a major voice in the decision-making process? Now, with principals, I feel the same way. I feel like, given the opportunity, I would have a principal advisory committee as well to really be able to hear the concerns, the desires, the obstacles that they face, and then take that information back and be an advocate for them and help remove those obstacles out of their way to give them the opportunity to really be able to do their jobs effectively.
Thank you, sir. Steve Highlander, District 9. I have friends in Knox County who spoke very highly of you, and I appreciate your interviewing with us. What have you done in the past, in your past experience with special needs students, with 504s, with inclusion that you think would be a positive, make a positive impact in our system?
Well, I've done quite a bit. If you look at my various positions, I have worked with special needs students throughout my entire career. One of the things that I want to say is I am an advocate for all students, special ed or regular ed. And I think that in order to really make sure that our special education students have a good quality education, I think it's important for us, number one, to make sure that they have quality teachers. I think that's key. But then the second piece is, I think it's important for us to make sure that we, as administrators, as board members, as teachers, as principals, that we have high expectations for those students. I used to say as a principal, students tend to live up to high expectations and down to low ones. And I think that's very, very important. So whether a student is special ed or regular ed, I have high expectations for those students. I want every student under my care to be able to reach his or her potential.
Thank you, sir, very much. Thurman?
Yes. I figure you taught math. That's wonderful.
I am.
Yeah. Math and you've done a lot with reading programs.
Yes.
I guess I know, so you obviously know how to teach reading and you know how to teach math, because it says here you've implemented an individualized intervention program for students struggling in reading and mathematics.
Yes.
I know one of the frustrations that I hear from teachers is that at the time they get started with a new curriculum, we change it every 2 or 3 years. That's one reason teachers get so frustrated. How do you feel about changing a curriculum like we do so many times? If you know how to do it, do you like to kind of stick with the plan? Are you always looking at a better way to make a mousetrap that never works? Or exactly, I'd like to hear that, because I think that's important for the teachers. They're going to be looking at you as well and telling us how they feel about our candidates. How do you feel about continually changing the curriculum for these teachers? About when they get on a good footing with something, then we change it, and it's continually changing. How do you feel about that?
Well, being in career education, I can say that, and I can say this because I'm a career educator, I'm not sure we've seen a program that we have disliked in terms of education. We tend to sort of gravitate to sometimes the latest thing that's coming down the pike, and I don't necessarily agree with that. Like you said, I think what we need to do is focus our attention. I think the important piece here is the teachers. I think the teachers are the most important. Programs don't move students forward. It's teachers. And so as superintendent, I plan on focusing my time and energy on the teachers, working with them, giving them the resources that they need. I think that is important, and letting the teachers have the ability to be able to have autonomy when it comes to teaching the particular subject that they're required to teach. And just going back to reading, and I'll make this quick because I have a habit of being long-winded, but reading is a very complex skill to teach. And I think number one, you have to make sure that you have quality teachers. Number two, I think it's important to provide the right sort of professional development. Believe it or not, most of our teachers who teach reading have never really had any formal training in teaching reading. So that will be important to me. And then the third piece is to make sure that they get that continuous professional development. And I think you do that by having literacy coaches in each one of your buildings, having at least one literacy coach in each one of your buildings. I think that is important to give that support for the teachers.
Thank you.
Mrs. Lennon?
Hi, Kathy Lennon, District 2.
Hello?
As Chief of Staff of Knox County, I'm sure there's many things that you face on a daily basis.
Yes.
What was the biggest challenge that you faced recently, and how did you deal with it?
The biggest challenge that I faced recently, I guess in terms of, over the past couple of years, we faced a number of things. And I'm trying to think of one in particular that I face. I typically deal with things on a daily basis. But I deal with, I'll just think about some of the situations that I've dealt with over the last year or so. I don't know whether you guys have to deal with this, but I deal with, at one particular school, we had a series of threats that were being called in, and we had to deal with how do you maintain the safety of those students, but not give in to whoever's making those threats and be able to allow them to have a negative impact on instruction. And so we really work very diligently in this particular school with the administration to work together, work on a plan on dealing with the person behind that series of events or the persons behind that, and to really try to work on getting that, to eradicate that. So that's been a big thing for us. Also, we've had some other situations come up, but to answer your question just in general, I think the key is to working with the folks at the school level in terms of coming up with a plan. I have found that as chief of staff, I'm removed. I think I understand the problem, but the key to working through a problem is making sure that you work with the folks at the building level, because they are closest to the issues, and it's important to really work with them to formulate a good plan.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll start over with 3 minutes, is that right, Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Starting over with questions of the 3-minute limit, Mr. Bennett will tell us when.
I actually haven't gone yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I was thinking I had you first, excuse me.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Robinson. I currently serve as the chairwoman of our finance committee. And we just finished up our budgeting season for the school year. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on best practices for budgeting and how, in your role as our superintendent, you would manage our $417 million budget.
Over the last few years, I've had the opportunity to really work with our team of people in terms of developing a budget. And really, one of the first things I would do is make sure that we start the process early. That is important. I think also it's necessary to make sure that we get as much input as possible from, first of all, the principals and the teachers, and then also central office staff. Be able to work with them on developing a list of things that they need to be able to do their jobs. I think that's key. But also another key piece, I think, is sometimes we forget about this, is the need to interface with the community to hear what their thoughts are about what should drive our budget. And I think one of the things that I would do is make sure that we have those budget forms for the community before that budget is fully formed, that we go to the community and get their thoughts. Lots of times we tend to see things one way as educators, but I think it's also important to have information or feedback looking through things from a different lens. And I think the public sometimes sees things differently, and I think that is important as a part of the budget process to make sure that there's input from the public. And then also having adequate time to sit down with each board member to make sure that we're hearing what their needs are for their various districts. And then also, I think at a certain point, another piece of that is to make sure that the funding body, the county commission, that sit down with them and make sure that we address any questions or concerns that they have about the process as well. So I think those are, just going back, talking about best practices, I think number one, making sure that we get input from the staff. Also making sure that we get input or feedback from the public, and then making sure that we've adequately sat down with each board member and gone through the process and listened to each board member and made sure that they are satisfied with the process, the way the budget is being developed. And then last but not least, also at a certain point, I think it's important to sit down with each member of your funding body as well.
I have a follow-up question, if that's okay. Does Knox County use any type of budgeting process, like student-based budgeting or zero-based budgeting?
Well, we're in the process of doing that. What we have done is, for the upcoming school year, we've identified 7 schools where we will have school-based budgeting for the upcoming school year. So those 7 schools are pilots, and what we plan on doing is, basically, if things work out well, is to go ahead and move that to the entire school district. And there are other school districts across the state where they have moved. I've read that they've moved to student-based budgeting, and I think that's the key. I think it helps us really, the people at the building level are well acquainted with the issues, the needs of each and every one of the students, and I think they make a really good decision. And so why not move the dollars to where the folks that are making those decisions, that are closest to the kids, giving them some autonomy in terms of the utilization of those resources.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next. Ms. Jones, you have another one?
Dr. Davis, currently we have 5 schools in the I-zone, so you're in Tennessee, so I'm pretty sure you're familiar with what that is.
I am.
What are your plans, and we have several schools that could possibly go on the cusp when they draw the cusp on the new list this year. So what would be your plans to address the current issues of the achievement gap in our inner city and priority schools? And could you give us ideas or research-based models or best practices that you would use or recommend that have proven to be effective in turnaround in schools? Because I know you all dealt with that some in Knox County.
We have. I'll give an opportunity, really, quickly, it's difficult sort of share a short period of time, but I was made principal of South Louisville High School. South Louisville High School basically was at risk of being taken over by the state. We had not met our graduation rate target, and so the superintendent appointed me as principal there, and really, I was only there for a year, and I had the same staff, but I went into that school and really worked with the staff that was there. The first thing I did was interface with the community that's there, and after interfacing with the community, I also had staff forums and student forums, and really developed a 2-year vision plan for the school. And as a result, at the end of that year, South Louisville High School, which hadn't made progress in 7 years, became a reward school. We were selected by the state as a reward school in 1 year. That means that we were in the top 5% of schools in the state of Tennessee in terms of academic growth. And so the key to moving our priority schools forward is making sure that we have a great principal at the helm. That is important. And when you bring in those turnaround principals, we have to make it worth their while. We have to put incentives in place to keep them there for a period of time for them to move the school forward. And in addition to that, I believe that it's also important to have level 4 and 5 teachers in our priority schools. We should not have anything but the best teachers and principals in our priority schools. I think that is very, very important to moving those schools forward.
Thank you, sir. Number 6.
Yes, I think that actually answered the part of what the question I had next. I'm going to pass on this. Go ahead.
Okay, number 7.
All right, this is Joe Wingate again. I see from your experience that obviously you spent the bulk of your time in school buildings in secondary ed environments, and I myself spent a decade in secondary ed myself. In terms of leadership in those buildings, and I'm not going to let you take the easy road here and say a blending of both of these. I want you to give me your preference. When you choose a leader for a middle school or a high school, would you prefer to have someone who is a curriculum specialist, or would you rather have someone who's a good manager of people and facilities, just an overall organizational manager?
All right, so I'm gonna answer this, and I have to say that here's what I firmly believe, that there was a time when you could have a manager running our schools, but I think that day is gone. I think we have to have a person who is an instructional leader at the helm of every school. The goals that the state has for us in our public school system, those are lofty goals, and you can't do it being a manager. I think it's important to be an instructional leader. So I'm just gonna say it, I think I have to have the whole package, and that's, I'm not sure that currently, whether or not we have, enough people in the pipeline to meet that requirement. We would have to grow our people. We have people in the system that have the ability to be able to do it. And so if we currently don't have enough, I think we work on growing our leadership and actually moving them into it. But in order to really be effective in today's current educational environment, there's no way to sit at the helm of a school and not be an instructional leader. You have to be an instructional leader.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, number 8, please, Mr. Testman.
Pass.
Steve Highlander, District 9. How would you partner with a school board and with the administration? Would you bring in other folks or look at what you're at? What would you do initially the first 30, 90 days in-house with your board and with current staff?
All right, the first thing I think is important to relation. I think that's key. I've learned that over my career in education. Education is a relationship-oriented business. That's the way it is. So in my first 90 days, again, as I said earlier, what I would do is make sure, first of all, and I'll deal with the board and that administration first. I think I would sit down, have individual conversations with the board members, have conversations with the board as a whole, but I think it's all about building relationships. I don't know about your board, whether or not currently you all do retreats, but that's also an opportunity that would be an opportunity for me as a superintendent to really get a chance to have some really good conversation with you all. Doing a retreat, that would be one way of doing it. And then the same for the administrators. I don't think you cannot operate as an island in education and achieve your goals anymore. You really have to work as a high-functioning team. And so whether it be with a board or whether it be with the administrative team, I would want to make sure that the first thing that I do is start building relationships. I think that's key. If the trust is not there, it's not going to work. You're not going to achieve the desired outcomes.
Thanks, sir. Ms. Thurman?
I think he's pretty much answered the questions I was gonna
Yeah.
ask, so.
Okay, Ms. Lemon?
Okay, what are the 3 most significant components that make a school system successful? And what role does the superintendent play in facilitating the achievement of these components?
All right, in my opinion, the thing that makes a school system successful is the people. It's the people, again, going back, I think as superintendent, probably the most important thing that I can do as superintendent of schools is to make sure that there's a quality principal at the helm of every school. That's key. And then the important thing that the principal can do is to make sure that there are exemplary teachers in every classroom delivering quality instruction every day. That is the key to moving a school forward, it's the key to moving a school system forward. And it's my job, it would be if I'm allowed the opportunity to be the next superintendent of Hamilton County Schools, it would be my job to make sure that to hold the principals accountable, and then for the principals to hold the teachers accountable. That is how I would move the district forward. I've seen that, again, if you go back and look at my career, you can look at whether I was an assistant principal at Bearden Middle, whether I was a principal at Cedar Bluff Middle, whether I was a principal at Carnes High School or Southwell High School. That was the formula to success to those jobs that I held, and I still hold that that's the formula to success in terms of moving a school district forward as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson?
I represent a district that has one of the largest growing ESL or English as a second language learners in our community. And I'm curious what type of work you have with that demographic and what case studies you either practice or that you've seen that are innovative ways of, turning around, students that are lower performing because maybe they have English as a second language?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question. Currently, right now, we are working as a district on establishing for this upcoming school year a welcome center. One of the things that we have found is that we found it difficult that when students come in to the school system and go to the various school sites to register, they don't necessarily have all of the necessary resources to be able to place those students appropriately, to do the right assessments, et cetera. And so what we're doing this upcoming school year is to make sure that we establish a centralized welcome center. And I know that that's been established in other parts of the state as well. I've seen that in other districts across the state. And so we're going to start having a welcome center beginning the 17-18 school year. So as students come in, that we really do a thorough job of getting them acclimated, them and their parents. I think the parents coming in, not really understanding the system and how to maneuver through that, I think that is important. And then another piece that we've done is that we have established a position called an ombudsman position. And an ombudsman position is to really work with parents, whether it be parents of students with English as a second language, or whether it be students that come from disadvantaged backgrounds, but helping them maneuver through the bureaucracy and really being able to help them solve some of the issues that they have to deal with. And so those are just a couple of things that I've had experience with and that I would make sure that we would look at as possibilities if those don't already exist.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your candid answers and your heart. Would you like to either ask us questions or give a summation for about 5 minutes?
Well, let me just say, again, I want to thank the board for allowing me the opportunity to interview for your superintendent's position. I really am honored to be a part of the process. I do want to say that Hamilton County is a great community. I have admired it from afar as I drive through, going home. I've had an opportunity to sort of stop and visit some parts of the city and really enjoy. And so, you know, I've had the opportunity to really look at the goals of the board, and I think those goals align nicely with the work that I've done in Knox County and the work that I've done at Cedar Bluff Middle, the work that I've done at Carnes High School, the work that I've done at South Florida High School, and the work that I've done from district office. So that's what I would like to sum up, and I trust that you've had an opportunity to really get some insight into my thoughts, my ideas about making sure that students are successful. And I do have one question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
All right, so the one question that I have is, what do you think will be the 2 major challenges that will face the next superintendent of schools?
Good questions. So they point to me for the hard questions, but I think personally, that student achievement, getting it where it needs to be, is Ms. Thunderloo, reading and math, but overall student achievement, and also meeting the financial needs of the school system. Now, others may feel differently, but
I'd like to add something. I think that, unfortunately, what we face is a level of distrust from the community as a school system.
that's true.
And so surely, you know, improving student achievement, improving financial abilities, improving all these things are certainly things that lead to the foundation of improving that trust. And so I feel like it actually boils down to one thing, which is that the community does not trust the school system. And we're looking for an opportunity, or for someone to come in and see that as an opportunity to make some real movement to build more trust with our system, or with our community.
I agree. Anyone
Thank
else? Anyone else want to chime in? Thank you so much. We
Thank
very
you.
much appreciate your time and your energy and your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Robinson, I always like to answer second. I hate to answer first. Then I can play off somewhere else. Right. I mean, I like to play off someone else. But I agree. But the two things I said, there you go, do yours.
I'm sorry. No, this
Dr. Holly, make sure you tell this man, yeah, show him that it's starting out.
Anybody want a snack? Popcorn,
That's right.
If we're wrap up to 7:35, and then they have another class on tomorrow, and that's to be eager, or that's all things to, I have something
yes, right, yep.
When you see her.
Yep, yep, that works. There you go. Thank you. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. I, like it was, and your turn. I'm not
The Now you gotta send a photographer. The only way I'll stop. Not really, they set up time. Yeah, they're going to Shelby County sometime this summer. I wasn't invited. I'll send you June 26th. My relationship with, they were asking me all kinds of questions last week. Like, yeah, special education, they talked that, if the students were that good, like, yes. But yeah, so they're visiting that, and then they plan to have the report ready.
I'm gonna try it.
As opposed to, crispy. When you take something in the house, they're waiting till after school's over to start off like. Yeah, but you gotta.
And I asked her, right, but that's can be hot. And I was like, but if I hadn't had that.
But it was very cute.
Mayor Howley made a joke that every spring is going out.
Oh, I get it, okay, I get it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he said, well, that's not as interesting as Mayor Rollins. Yeah, they probably could, but they're not because they only have 1,300 students.
about,
the requirements that have been covered. They're surrounded by Chattanooga City, so
really
It's straight now, and they're rolling back forward. But I'm rolling to cover my
So you got it for that, being recording that. Are you also recording like on
because if I know that all of a sudden the field goes,
something can't go wrong.
we've got one of our people does, can take, they roll both cards in, so it takes me really
That's like super. Oh wait, no, I know.
How does it make it?
So you don't have to
Like just bringing
finally someone else can take over.
that doesn't check.
It's a very skillful set. It's a fine line. Okay, I didn't know they did that. They don't have okay. So you got your accident. No. There was a period of time. I didn't know y'all did that. Do y'all have like it's like all that hard work is just out there, or, you know, you're just now being recognized for it.
It doesn't really fit in our background.
I can tell you're really humble about it. I would be pleased if I worked my ass off and I one more.
Oh, no, that's next week.
It's gonna be a Skype.
I understand it's appropriate for, maybe he should. His audio.
Yeah, that's like, I've never seen like technology.
I was fearful it was gonna be like that for all of them. I was like, there's no way.
And be like,
David Carroll's. at 8. And then you're making it up. Well, no, I'm not turning anything. Here.
It's not fair to you. You're sitting.
No, it's fine. I'm night side for like 2 more weeks, and then the new girl comes. Tanisha's going night side. Yeah, and then I go back to my day side. I've been doing this since January. Over it. Over it.
Answer any questions that they need to
Heard that Brittany's going dayside. When are you leaving? What's on here? You are? It's alright, I'll go by fast.
All you gotta do is go that, all you gotta do is go that. What was that? I don't know, it goes up every day. I'm not sure what.
What?
You gotta get over this part.
So the thing is, like, did he text you?
Yeah, he texted me.
Oh, he texted you? He didn't text me anything. So I just got an email. I sent the email and I was like, no, we're not going. He didn't text me.
I got a full dose.
Oh, that's
I'm all
how did that work out? I didn't get I'm married.
I'm so glad.
No, she's very good.
It's so good in your world.
He does have a birthday. That's true. Unknown. But they said we're she's like 4 or 5. I really didn't have after a trip. I thought she was 4 months, but I just got she's already on the
He does not like he doesn't like talking.
He has a girlfriend.
He's funny.
Yeah.
He's funny when you talk, yeah, he's cool.
Because I've never really he seems like he's always really like pissed off.
Yeah, like he's like mad at me. Like I'll ask him a question.
Like anybody else who works now.
They're allowed to go.
Because I can never remember his name either, and I see him all the time, you know, because he's outside.
I try. Like whenever I get it, I literally like hit him and just like choke. Hit him as hard as I can, and eventually he just like
Try to break.
it starts to break through.
He dresses like it's winter every day. Like it can be 90 degrees out and it's still hot. Like he's dressed for winter.
They're supposed to be itty-bitty.
Rolled over. There was a car seat, but there was no kid in it, the car seat just came in. He went to and before I left, I had been out. It's all that breaking through that lower industry. He throws it up.
She's thawing out.
You can, or you can contact them. Oh, yeah. It's after 30 minutes before, she take it up. She fuck it up. Sure, you take it up 30 minutes before?
No, I put it out 30 minutes.
Meanwhile, Eric is taking pictures like this. I'm like, oh, did you been here? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we took the tank.
Yeah, right?
We don't take public comments. I don't think you do.
There was a train accident.
Take her. Quite two.
I just take where it needs to be took, or I think we did. Everything was all over. He shows up, and she's like, oh, it's don't believe me. Oh, you're talking about the guy. I get off of the we're done.
No.
I love that again.
It was one of the old ones.
I'm that person, like, it's 2 o'clock.
I don't know how his number to text him.
Organizing with sort of a slower take on. Like in certain areas of the county, up there. Yeah, we're playing it slow. We're trying to build long term. She's particularly interested in. No, I think that she is like.
About 4 minutes, folks. I really like
Yes, he does. His character.
because it's
We were doing our show.
the technical abilities are great.
One that you have a picture of the soccer game. Her? No. I've met your
Also,
mother.
like, continually will send me comments when I look on my I'm like, even when I'm just scrolling through it,
Never met you.
it might be my phone.
minutes, folks. And I ain't going to explain it, I mean, you're
Yeah, I agree.
I met your mom.
I really do like that.
In classes for you to take practice, like practice with you, practice. Or even out school, they don't offer out school, they already be out school. If you want it, now, we do, we have some social work classes, but now let me see. Put a nude on
less than a minute, folks. Less than a minute. Sorry, I'm Got a countdown, folks. Didn't get. Under a minute. Need to get quiet if we can, please, until the teacher voice comes out.
Could be.
We talked about that earlier today, actually. So,
Yeah, you're right.
I was like, you was.
David said it showed that he was online.
Most of them think we're, most of them think we're on Central.
Here we go, folks.
Hello.
Hello.
Dr. Johnson, thank you for agreeing to interview with us on Skype. I'm Steve Highlander. We will have our first round of questions, about 4.5 minutes, and our attorney and timekeeper will tap me on the shoulder if you run close, and at 30 seconds, I'll give you a little hand wave so you can be tying up loose ends. And first of all, sir, we would like to let each person introduce themselves to you, starting District 1.
Rhonda Thurman, District 1.
Kathy Lennon, District 2.
And Mr. Smith had to be out with District 3.
Tiffany Robinson, District 4.
Oh, Carissa Jones, District 5. I'm sorry, Dr. Johnson.
District 6.
Joe Galloway, District 6. Joe Wingate, District 7.
David Testament, District 8.
And Steve Highlander, District 9.
So you gotta go.
We would like you to give a 4 or 5 minute introduction if you'd like, and then we'll start our questioning with District 6 this time, I believe. That's correct. So, thank you, sir.
Thank you. First and foremost, thank you all for the opportunity to speak about potentially being the director of schools there in Hamilton County, and consider me as a candidate. I am a product of public education, born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. Moved to Clarksville, Tennessee in about 2000. Went to Nashville Metro schools throughout my K-12 experience. Got into the business field, got a degree at Austin P in business, and had the unique opportunity to get a summer job working with students right before the start of my senior year, and really just realized I love kids. I absolutely love the impact that an adult mentor can make in a child's life and change the trajectory of their lives. And so realized I made probably a degree mistake, but very far along in regards to my bachelor's. So was able to go back and receive a master's in teaching, and went directly to the classroom. Taught special ed for about 5 years. Was afforded opportunity to be an assistant principal, afforded opportunity to be a principal, high school director, academic officer, and that's where I currently am. And so I think that your school district is a wonderful opportunity for whoever is fortunate enough to lead it. You've got an engaged community. Obviously, we've all been engaged as board members. And again, I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak with you about what skills and assets I can bring to the table.
Thank you, sir, so much. And we'll start with our, we'll have, like I said, 4.5 minutes. I'll let you know if you're running close to the time. Yes, sir.
Yes,
Galloway.
Joe Galloway, District 6. Thanks for being with us, Dr. Johnson. This is kind of the question we've asked several to kind of get an overview of where you're coming from. What do you feel are 3 top priorities needed to be addressed in Hamilton County, and how do you plan to address them?
Well, I think just the first one was achieved. I think you always start with students and how they're performing academically, socially, emotionally, what experiences, exposures you're providing them with at a very stage throughout their school. And so I think you've got to look at the continuum of everything from early education and what you're doing to make every student literate and to make every student a reader, all the way up to what you're doing to ensure the students ultimately graduate from your district college and career record. And so it's those experiences that you provide. So student achievement is, I think, the first critical component that's got to be addressed. The second component, I think, every district, has to deal with it, schools. And so I think you really got to look at the budget. Really got to look in partnership and collaboratively at the budget and really see where we are. Is it aligned to the things that you all as a board and obviously whether it's the director, the teachers, the community feel are important, and ensure that we're aggressively aligning our budget to what I spoke to in number 1, which is student achievement. And so I make sure that all of our resources are point for improving outcomes for every single student within the district. And then the third thing I think that's really critical is culture. And I speak to that very broadly. I think that there has to be a culture built that lets everybody know, one, we're a high-performing school system that cares about students and cares about a student experience, but also we're a great place to work. We're a great place to be a teacher. We're a great place to be a custodian. We're a great place to be a principal. We're a great place to be a central office personnel. So I think that it has to be developed and spread out into the community. When I look at a school district is more than school buildings. The school district is really the heartbeat of what happens within a community. So when you look at business and industry coming into a play, when you look at the economic vitality of the community, the school system plays a critical part. And so I think there's developing culture where there's high expectations. The community knows there's high expectations. I'll be very frank. I think that we want the brightest to be a part of the school system. And so, I understand that there's several private schools there, but I want parents to really be thinking, do I send my child to a private school or do I send my child to Hamilton County? And at the end of the day, we want students to be there. And that comes with the culture that we build. So, again, the student chief really ensuring that students are set on the trajectory to be successful academically, socially, and emotionally. then the funding, and then thirdly, obviously, schools.
Thank you, sir. District 7?
Dr. Johnson, thank you for being here. This is Joe Wingate, District 7. In looking at your time as a principal there in Clarksville, Montgomery County, I see at Northwest that you have here that you increase school-wide student growth, the TBOS scores, from level 2 to a level 5. And if you've done any research about our system, you know that we have struggled with some proficiencies across the school district, and then also we have some priority schools, obviously, that are getting a lot of attention. Can you speak just quickly to some specific strategies that were used while you were leading that school?
Sure. Well, just the Norfolk school that was underperforming, and so it was fourth opportunity to be principal there. And the first thing that I think you always start with is what's your mission, what's your vision, and how you want to operate. And so we developed a set of what we term as operating principles that we all could agree to hold ourselves accountable to. And then we went about the work, really creating demand for ensuring that every teacher is providing high quality instruction. We implemented common planning, common assessments, began to really talk about student data, began to really talk about how each individual student was performing. Within the research, you'll see that the high performing schools find ways to get tools embedded into the day for remediation and intervention opportunities. And so we went about that, really implement an intervention period for our students to make sure that we were filling gaps and ensuring that they were set up to be as successful as possible while they were in our building, and experienced a great measure of success with that. And the thing I think I'll point to in that experience that I had, I was very proud of what, not I did, but the teachers did, what the administrators worked with did, what the community did, but most proud in regards to that school is that they continue to perform extremely well. I think if you look at the turnaround, some people do a really good job with that initial increase in student achievement and student scores, but I think we put structures in place that are sustainable, and I think that's evidence in how the school has continued to perform.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. District 8?
It's David Testerman, Dr. Johnson. My question would be, I'd like for you to focus on how you will attempt to improve morale within the school. I know that in many of our schools, community is left out of the evaluation process of the school as a whole. Evaluation of how the principal interacts with the community, how they interact with individual parents when they are part of the school function, PTA, sports, whatever it might be. How are you going to ensure that each community is going to have a voice in the evaluation of the school process, the principal and the teachers?
Well, I think we do it four ways. First of all, it's important that leaders in the school system develop a purposeful community. And when we talk about purposeful, it's got to be focused on the outcomes that really matter to all. And so you develop those outcomes again by really looking at evaluating vision, evaluating what principles you're going to hold yourself accountable to. And those are
Dr. Johnson, we're breaking up just a little bit. I don't know if there's anything we can, okay, try.
Do you have your cell phone next to your computer?
I don't.
We're getting some feedback.
I'm going to try to cut it down a little bit.
Okay,
Is that better?
not
Is that-
really, not really. Try it again.
Is that better?
Yes.
That's better.
Okay. I'll have to listen real closely with questions, but I cut the volume down some. So, but I think when you talk about, really evaluating how principals perform, and I think you do that initially by developing a set of norms and expectations that are cohesive within the community and that everybody can agree to. And then I think once you do that, what I would encourage principals to do is to seek out the output opportunities. And so
a few of the things that I've found to be really are parent groups. And so one of the things I implemented when I was at Northwest, we really did essentially a parent diversity of what was important within our school, and really listen to them about how we could improve the school. And so what's really going well, or what's really some things that are areas of challenge and areas of concern, what are some opportunities that we really have as a school system or as a school, and then what are some threats really to our school building. So you really go through that process and build some structures throughout the course of I would encourage a principal throughout the course of their principalship to really listen, learn, and then implement those things that the community has shared with you. At the district level, I've been involved in, we have monthly parent feedback engagement groups. We've got parent ambassadors. We've got several different student advisory groups. And I think you take all that feedback in. What we've always tried to do is take all that feedback in and use all that feedback to make a determination as to what we need to do as far as our next steps. And I think that's got to be ongoing throughout a principalship. It would be ongoing throughout my role, and it'd be something that I would ensure that's happening. I can foresee really doing some things like setting up a parent advisory group where you have a few parents from each school that are represented. Really splitting them up probably because you couldn't bring all of them in a room with 70-some schools, but really doing an elementary, middle, and high group. Really listen to them each month, and that's a monthly ongoing group that I want FaceTime with, because what I found is really the higher you go up, so to speak, you get further away from what's really happening, and to keep a pulse on what's really happening, you've got to listen. You've got to engage the right people and have the right people in the room to get the information. And so, I think from an evaluative standpoint, that's how I would be able to evaluate, we would be able to evaluate as a system, whether or not we're performing, whether or not we're meeting standards, because we'd be listening to what our community is saying.
Thank you so much, sir. Steve Hollander, District 9, you mentioned that you dealt with special education. What specifically have you done in the past to improve the quality of education in general in the system by integrating the special needs students, 504, autistic, or whatever, with the inclusion program, and how would you advocate improving the whole system, including special needs students?
Sure. So in my current role, I oversee special populations, but I think I'll speak to my time as director of high schools. We're very similar to you demographically. We have about 14% of our students which are special populations or special education. In my role as director of high schools, serving about 9,000 students, we really want to do some things to ensure that our students were in their LRE or their least restrictive environment. That's federal law to ensure that you're ensuring that and making sure that happens. What we really found, we had to really take a deep look at ourselves and really say, are all the programs that we have in place, are they the right programs? Are they challenging students to the level they really need to be challenged? Do we have the right supports in place? And so we really did again, a lot of listening to our principals, working with our special ed department. And essentially what we did is we took several of our programs, so to speak, out of play within our system, within the high schools in particular. And we saw significant gains for our high school students. As evidenced by the way our students have been able to grow. We looked at RLA, we looked at math, those two areas in particular, and we said what's happening. When we start to peel back the layers of the data and start to look at how they were performing, we found a lot of times it was one or two students in a teacher's class that they were missing. And so again, putting those structures in place to continue to look at those assessments and how those students were performing, come back and see how we were going to intervene, providing professional learning opportunities for our teachers. Because one of the things we found when we took a lot of the programs out of play, sometimes, and just like for anybody, there can be some struggles. You can get so used to a program that the core tenets of instruction sometimes you can miss. And so we found that we had to offer a lot of professional learning, which we have continued to do throughout time. And our students that are in an inclusion classroom, it's increased significantly by upwards of 50%. And so we're very proud that our students are in those classrooms with those students in their least restrictive environment. And so I think that's a focus. My background is special ed, my master's in special ed, and so I've had a lot of experience from everything from students that are most severely disabled to the inclusion setting, to self-contained setting, to be able to support students in those particular areas.
Thank you, sir. We're going to District 1 now, sir.
Yes, Dr. Johnson, you said a minute ago you thought maybe you got the wrong degree first, the business degree, but I actually think that helps you be very well-rounded. I think that's a good thing to do, and helps you be very well-rounded. Maybe that will help you with this next question. Have you ever been faced with a situation that made you think of something outside the box? Maybe that education people might kind of look at you and kind of, tilt their head. Have you ever been faced with a situation that would make you do something a little bit differently than maybe they would in the education world? And what kind of results did you get?
I think the team that I work alongside every day would say I live about every day outside of the box.
That's where I live.
There's a theory on disruption, and I talk to our team about this very frequently, but it comes out of the Harvard Institute, and they talk a lot about businesses, and from the business perspective, what disruption really is you talk about an Uber, and Uber is very disruptive when you talk about what it's done to the cab industry. And so what I talk to our team about is we want to be the disruptors, we don't want to be disrupted. And so everything that we've done with our strategic work, and we've looked at it from a disruptive lens within instruction. One of the things in particular that we've done is that every school system in America has a textbook adoption yearly. And so we've looked at our textbook adoption, and what we found was that when we brought teachers in and we listened to teachers and we listened to students and we listened to principals and we listened to our community, we found that our students weren't using textbooks quite as much as we thought. When you're spending $4, $5, $6 million on a textbook, and you ask a teacher how many days a week are you using that, and how many are using 5 days a week, and nobody raised their hand. You have to really evaluate, are you getting the bang for the buck? And so what we did is, we took about a $4 million textbook adoption down to about $2 million. We took those resources and put them into laptops. Grades 6 through 12 will be 1-to-1 in our school system. So every student will have a device. We think that's critically important. And then also we listened to our teachers. They said they needed online resources and curriculum to be able to support their work. And so we've created a strategic plan for the next 5 or 6 years that we're very proud of. That's going to take our textbook adoption from, again, about $4 million down to $2 million. And when you talk about a textbook adoption, it's not just science, social studies, math, and RLA. Individually, we're able to go after all of those resources collectively and have significant budget savings, and again, get technology in students' hands. And so we're very excited about that and have gotten very positive feedback on the direction in which we're headed.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Lennon, District 2.
Hi, Dr. Johnson, Kathy Lennon, District 2.
Hello.
What are the 3 most significant components that make a school system successful? And what role does the superintendent play in facilitating the achievement of these components?
Yeah. So teachers, leaders, and community. Those 3 are the 3 most critical things, with teachers being number 1. Teachers have the most significant impact on students and student outcomes. And so I commend you all for your aggressive approach to proposing a 5% raise for teachers. They're definitely deserving. And so I think that you've got to ensure, I look at the superintendency, you've got to ensure that you're being aggressive with your recruiting efforts. You've got to ensure that you're going after the best and the brightest, and you're building pipelines with universities. You're building pipelines with even outside of the state. Ensure that you're getting the best teachers in front of every student within a classroom. And so I think in addition to that, you've got to ensure that you're providing quality professional learning for those teachers. You're meeting them exactly where they are, and then taking them to the level that you want them to move to. And so I think there's got to be a lot of support mechanisms throughout. I think just, digging down a little bit deeper into professional learning, I think your new teacher induction has really got to be a critical component. We've had significant success with our new teacher induction, and I think that it's got to be something, because you lose teachers a lot of times years 1 through 3. The research shows that you got to make sure that you're bringing them into the district and introducing them to the expectations and supporting them throughout that continuum. When I look at leaders, I think leadership matters. Leadership is critically important. Our district is a McGrail Balanced Leadership District. I'm a McGrail Balanced Leadership trainer, and within McGrail, they really teach 3 things. They've taken a meta-analysis of a bunch of research and really pared it down to the things that matter most. And really those 3 things are the development of a purposeful community, which I spoke to, creating a very clear focus, and then being able to manage change. I think you've got to make sure that there are frameworks in place, and I think there's got to be frameworks in place throughout the district. And so just jumping back to the teachers, I think there's got to be a strong teaching framework in place that you expect to see within a classroom. I think that you've got to clearly delineate those standards and make sure that those teachers are prepared to teach the standards and to be as successful as possible. That's how you set them up for success. And then again, I think that in regards to the leaders, you got to make sure that you're training them and that you're supporting them, that you're making sure they're able to manage change. I'll deal with change specifically. I think change is inevitable when you look at the state of education, when you look at ESSA, when you look at change of standards, TN Ready, what have you. It's inevitable that things are going to change. The difference in dealing with change a lot of times is the leader, and that leader is central to ensuring that the change makes sense. So we talk to our principals a lot about being sense makers, about ensuring that the magnitude of the change isn't so overwhelming for the teachers, the support staff, that they just can't handle it. And so how do you make sense of it? How do you pare it down? How do you communicate and articulate it in such a way that you're building to be successful, that you're building to remain focused? And then thirdly, when I look at a system, the community is critically important. And so engaging the community in a multitude of ways, whether it be stakeholder groups, I think your communication plan has to be very aggressive. I think you've got to share the really great things going on in Hamilton County. What are the great achievements? Those things have to be at the forefront. Those are the bright spots that you really want to highlight, because you want those things replicated. You want other teachers and other schools to be doing the things that those highlight, those bright spot areas are doing. And so I think those 3 elements are really essentially important. And then ultimately, when you get those three things right, students benefit, because students are at the core of the reasons why you do those things that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Robinson, District 4.
Hi, Dr. Johnson, thank you so much for your enthusiasm for Hamilton County. I currently serve as the chairwoman of the Finance Committee, and I'm curious your thoughts on the budgeting process that you would take on if you were awarded the position of our superintendent, and how you would manage our $417 million budget.
Sure. Well, our budget is currently about $250 million, and now we'll see about 3/4, all within the instruction department. And so I've got some familiarity with larger budgets. I think that you start when I talk to our team about our budgeting process, we always start with the strategic work, and that strategic work, those strategic goals that you develop, they really drive what you do. And I think it's a layer deeper than just the strategic work. I think you've got key performance indicators that you've got to develop within there that'll help you really guide you through the start of the process. But once you develop that strategic work and you've got those strategic goals in place, then I think you look at your budget and you begin to have conversation about the things that are within the budget and how those things align to the strategic goals that you all as a board, we as a community, teachers, administrators, central office staff have all had a part in developing. And so I think once you do that, you begin to develop your budget from there. Then you look at all the things that you're doing. I know there's a lot of talk about zero budgeting and really looking at are the things that we have in place, are we really getting the bang for the buck out of those things? I'll just speak this year. I've cut several things out of our budget. Not because we couldn't afford them, but because we didn't need them and we weren't getting the results. And so I think you've got to have that laser-like focus with the budgeting process, and it's got to be continuous. And I think each department has to do that. And then obviously, throughout the process, we've engaged you as a board because you really help set the vision for where we want to head in regards to those strategic goals, in regards to the vision, in regards to what you see as outcomes that you desire, whether it be improving your literacy, improving your ACT, those things that you've identified as really important to you, improving your graduation rate. And then how do we align our dollars to that? Then obviously, I think once you've done that, you've also got to look at ensuring that you've heard the community voice. I think that community voice really plays and resounds strongly in the budgeting process. And you want to make sure the things you've done have aligned to that. And then ultimately, I think you've got to stay in constant dialogue with your county commission, with the county mayor, make sure that they understand the implications of where you are, whether it be a building plan, whether it be taking on a technology initiative, whatever the case may be, whether it be a 5% increase for employees across the board. You've got to make sure that they understand the implications of what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing. I think a lot of times leaders miss the opportunity to really dig down and explain the why. And so we've got to make sure that throughout the budgeting process we're doing that. And again, everything's aligned to that strategic work. Those strategic goals, those key performance indicators, those are the things that really set the course for your budgeting process.
Thank you, sir. You got a follow-up?
Yeah, I was just curious, what did you cut out of your budget?
I'm sorry?
What did you cut out of your budget?
We cut several online resources that our teachers we weren't using as much as we thought that they would be using.
Okay, just curious, thank you.
Yes, good. Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Dr. Johnson, I noticed in your resume that you, in your current position and your last 3 positions, you have been a part of a team, I'm assuming, or even spearheaded the success of some schools where they are either in reward school status or with T-BOS scores of 5.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty amazing, honestly. That was something that really drew my attention. We have several schools here. We have about 5 schools currently that are local forming schools, and so I was curious as to what research-based models or best practices that you use, or anything that you did that may have been innovative to, or even as a part of the team, to get those schools to where they were with the T-BOS scores of 5, or even to the reward school status.
Yeah. So our district, we have some great structures in place, and I go back to those frameworks because I think a lot of times what happens in reform efforts is you throw things at a problem and you don't get to the root cause. So it's important to get to the root cause of the issue. So what we've been able to do is to, again, put some very strong frameworks in place for our teachers and what we expect to see in the classroom. And so it hadn't been that there's not been a single school in our system where we've thrown a thing at it. We've just thrown the research-based right work at it. And so we've put teaching frameworks in place. All of our schools are trained on explicit direct instruction, and what explicit direct instruction is, what an explicit lesson looks like. We try to do a very good job of working through our curriculum guides, using the state blueprints, and saying this is the standard, this is what the standard means, this is how you teach the standard, this is how you assess the standard. We made sure that all of our principals and assistant principals go through balanced leadership training. And so a leader's role is to balance, and there's a balance and there's engagement of everybody to be exactly where they are. And so we've tried to ensure those frameworks in place. And what we found is there's no quick way to success. When you train people on the right work and you embed the right work systemically through a district, you'll get performance. It's evidenced by what we've been able to do. We just had 4 high schools recognized as U.S. News and World Report schools, and that's because they focused on the right work. It's not even with implementation of technology, some people look at it and say, man, that's innovative. But what we want to make sure is that that our teachers are using that the right way. So you don't necessarily come into a system and say, okay, we're just going one-to-one. Because you can have a device, and a device can be the same thing as a crossword puzzle on a student's desk, just handle. And so it's really focusing on the right work, focused on those best practices, make sure there's a solid teaching framework, making sure there's solid curriculum guides and understanding of what the standards are asking teachers to do, making sure the assessments are aligned, making sure that there's a great leadership framework in which all your principals and assistant principals go through, making sure whatever instructional coaches, academic coaches you have in place are trained and understand what the standards mean and how to collaboratively plan. We implemented collaborative planning, professional learning communities, where our teachers come together, and they discuss the standard, they discuss how students perform, they discuss things that may need to be retaught. And so we have those conversations around the table in order to improve practice. And then we add things that we've added, such as a career academy in all of our high schools, or one-to-one, or a focus on STEM that we have throughout the district of every school. All those things just enhance the core of what you're doing. So again, it's making sure that you've got solid frameworks. And I say this, there's got to be vocabulary, okay? There's got to be solid vocabulary in place that everybody understands, because that's what makes implementation faster.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Sir, we're gonna start with 2-minute question rounds. If anyone has a second round, I'll start in District 6 for 2 minutes, please.
I'm actually good. He's answered.
Okay, thank you. District 7.
Dr. Johnson, this is Joe Wingate again. You mentioned, when you were talking about what you value, you said, teachers and leaders and then communities. And Carissa hit on this a little bit, but, in the 5 schools right now that we're dealing with, that are priority schools, there's been a lot of money thrown at those schools, millions of dollars thrown at those schools. And I'm talking about over the last 15, 16 years, and really not seen a whole lot of movement there. And so I think we understand, but we're trying to wrap our heads around, okay, so as you say, the problem, what's the root cause of that? And there are a lot of causes of that, whether it be poverty, whatever it may be, coming to school hungry, or not knowing, as one of our other board members says, who deals with a lot of kids who don't know what their situation is going to be every night, where they're going to lay their head. And so talk to me for just a second about, okay, so as a school system, we've got to somehow delve into that social work a little bit. And so how does that interconnect? What does that look like as far as meeting those social, which you mentioned already, the social and emotional needs of those kids, which is what we've got to do before we can ever get them to start feeling safe enough and secure enough to learn or to be taught?
Sure. So I think obviously the environment's where it starts. If a student doesn't feel good about where they're coming or the reason why they're coming, if they don't have food, you can't begin to identify the areas. And so there's.
It's 30 seconds.
Oh, okay.
30 seconds when he asked the question. It's part of the question.
2 minutes is part of the question.
Sorry, I talk too much.
Go ahead, I'll pass mine.
I already passed mine, so.
Okay, go ahead. You can use Joe's time, go ahead. He's got tapped.
I want to hear the answer.
I'll make it as short as you want me to. So I think, you gotta make sure that your counselors are trained. You gotta make sure there's wraparound services in place. You've gotta engage the community resources that you have available, because you have some community resources available. You've gotta make sure they're in the school. I think you've gotta, it goes back to engagement. How do you engage a student in something that they love? So whether it's athletics, whether it's, we have career academies. What we do with our career academies is we don't teach career in isolation. So you don't just go to a CTE course to get career. You get career embedded into your math, science, English, and social studies. And so if I'm teaching you an RLA standard, I'm teaching it through the lens of what's going on in the healthcare field, or what's going on in the business field, or what's going on in the computer field. And when you do those things, you flip a switch in kids. And I've seen kids that hated going to school that absolutely now love to go to school, because they know I'm going to be a medical technician, or they know I'm going to be a veterinarian, or they have a purpose. And so I think you've got to engage them in those particular areas. You've got to engage the wraparound areas. You've got to see where you have issues. Again, I'm not a believer in throwing stuff at problems. I'm a believer in figuring out what the problems are. So the problems in our elementary schools, the problems in our middle, or the problems in our high, what's causing those problems? Is it a leadership issue? Is it a teacher not teaching issue? How do we engage those parents? How do we make sure that we have after-school programming in place to support our students? How do we make sure that we have before-school programming in place to support our students? How do we make sure if we can't get them that way, that we get during the school day? I found that to be very successful during my time in Northwest, which was a pretty high poverty school.
Thank you.
Thank you, I'm glad you had time to do that, you deserve that. Okay, number 8, please.
I'm done.
Okay. Let me just, what would you do, should you be chosen, sir? How would you go about establishing your leadership team the first 90 days or so?
Yeah, so obviously I have some really good leaders in place, and so I'd evaluate where they are, and really try to evaluate where we might have gaps. I'd be listening to them, where are the gaps that you see? You gotta make sure that academically you have a strong team in place, because that's again the heartbeat of the district. I'd wanna make sure that financially we're sound. Obviously, when I look at your BP funding, you're above the state average in your BP. So what are we doing with those dollars? How are we maximizing those dollars to support students? And so I look at what you have first, and see where we might improve. Obviously, create measures of accountability that, we all agreed upon. And then if I identify that there were shifts that need to be made, we'd make those shifts together. But it wouldn't start by just coming in and making shifts. I'm going to bring this person in and do this. I really want to understand what you have in place right now, and then really quickly develop a plan to improve student outcomes really, really quickly.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thurman?
I think you answered most of my questions.
I have a question for you. If you're named superintendent of Hamilton County Schools, what measures would you immediately put in place to ensure that the voices of teachers are heard and respected? And what role have you played in your career in negotiating a contract between teachers and the Board of Education?
Yeah. So that's a lot. I got 2 minutes, I'm going. So I'm going to get collaborative conference. I'm going to get collaborative conference, which brings all the different teacher groups to the table. And I've been involved in that for the last 3 or 4 years. I lead a teacher communication group where I meet monthly with a teacher rep from each school. And I listen to them on what's working, what's not working. Here recently, the development of our instructional strategic work was based on feedback sessions. I went around to every feeder cluster within our district and asked each school to identify 4 teachers because I wanted to hear what was working, what was not working. And you'd be surprised how those different things really help teachers know that central office isn't this thing that's happening over in the ivory tower. We got to be mobile. And so I didn't speak to this, but first night I'd be in every building at least once. Within the first 9 weeks here in our district, I was in every building at least once, several of them twice. And so I think that boots on the ground, being very visible. I'm gonna tell you, I'd be at a football game every Friday night. I'm gonna be at some music productions. I'm gonna be engaged in your community, and so I think those things make you accessible and helps teachers to understand. It really calms the waters as far as teachers understanding who you are and what you're about.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Robinson?
Sure. We have a large growing ESL population in Chattanooga, and I just wondered, do you have any work or experience with students who have English as a second language, and what are some of the practices that you put in place to work with those students and increase their graduation rates?
Sure. Well, I think the rates, you're about 5% ESL, a little over 2,200 students. Our district is about 3%. And so I had an opportunity to work with ESL students. I will note that we were the #1 district for growth specifically in English as a second language in the state of Tennessee. And so that comes with a lot of hard work from a lot of people. We have some folks at our district office, a couple of folks in particular that do a lot of good work as far as with POCs, making sure our teachers are trained, making sure that we're supporting families and making sure that we're getting students exactly what they need. So I do have experience in that. We have had success in that, and I think it's just a matter of really digging down, looking at your ESL teachers, making sure they understand what it means to be an ESL teacher, making sure they're communicating. A lot of times where a gap is not so much of the ESL teacher, but it's in those other core area teachers. So what are those communication mechanisms at the school level to ensure that we're supporting those students, not just in that individual class, but also in the math, science, English, and social studies, those other courses that they're in.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Jones, do you have another? Okay. So, correct me if I'm wrong, does that covers 2 rounds? Okay, sir, if you would, you can have 5 minutes, and you can either give a summation, or ask us questions, or both.
Yeah.
It's your pleasure.
Well, I'll start just saying thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to interview and to consider me. I've been very blessed to be in a place where we've experienced a lot of success. Our district is very transient. About 30% of our school system is a military population. So we have students coming and going all the time. And to be able to perform the way we performed is a testament to our great leaders that are around us. It's a testament to our great teachers. It's a testament to our community. And I would just love the opportunity to do that there. I share with you this, whoever you land with, it's great to be innovative. I believe in innovation. But there's no quick fix to move student achievement. It's about sticking to the core elements, getting the core elements right, and not twisting in terms of staying focused on what matters most. And if you do that, you can move a school, you can move a district really quickly. It's evident in my resume. We moved really quick. It's because we've been focused on the right work with intentionality and a sense of urgency that I think is second to none. To be named the #1 district in growth 2 years in a row is again a testament to that. I will ask this: what are you all looking for in a superintendent?
Anyone would like, Mr. Wingate?
I'll say this, I'm looking for someone to come in and not just lay out a vision, but have the grit and the resolve to want to invest in this community for the long term. And long term is relative to a lot of people, but for me, long term means that the vision that you've laid forth and the leadership that you've set forth, we see the fruits of that. That's what long term means to me. Not some spinning of data to make things appear better than they are, but that it's plainly evident to everybody in the community that this individual, if they choose to leave, has left it in a much better place than the way that they found it.
Sounds good, very good. Anyone else?
I think what I'd like to see is, and I appreciate the fact you said there was no quick fix. There's nothing that really bothers me more than somebody comes and says, we're gonna get your graduation rate up to 100%, we're gonna increase your ACT score, that everybody's gonna score 30. I mean, they go on with all this stuff, and that's just not gonna happen. And, I just want a superintendent that's gonna say, if you want an education in Hamilton County, we're gonna give you the best education that you can get in a public school. We are going to do that here. And if you don't want an education, we can't do anything to make you want an education. You're gonna have to want it yourself and go in and get it. But the ones that won't go there in Hamilton County and get an education, it is here, it is available, and it is for you. But I appreciate the fact that there's no quick fix, that you just have to keep focused on what your job is, and that's to educate the children that want an education, and I appreciate that.
We do appreciate everything. Anyone else have a comment? We do appreciate your comments, your heart, your desire to help children, and I agree with Ms. Thurman and some of the others that there is not any quick fix. And I think hopefully the community understands that too. While you're innovative, you are understanding the reality of getting in there and working day in and day out. And thank you so much. We certainly appreciate your time, your efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, we've got two items to discuss. You need to take a short break. Take a quick break, and then we'll get back to it. The timer hit me off. But I'm glad he got it out because he did a good job.
much space.
And then I came back with a hip hop. Jill told me it's not bad. It's not bad, is it? It's really not bad. I did go to them ladies though. I went for ladies.
Where was it? You contacted them.
I know. I said, that's why I told her I went for ladies. But Jill told me to the skin talk. It's really not bad. I might even be in the skin talk anyway. That's why I got
Story of our lives.
I'm trying to get into something.
Sitting and leaving.
I'm sure I know you're fire outfit.
And I ignore comments. I normally don't, but that is
That's
good.
some benefits of some sort.
No, that's how I said it.
Yeah, that's how
Well, that would be straight. Dark chocolate
Legally required training.
but that one right there, that's sea salt.
But they're the ones that had
Dark chocolate and sea salt.
I like
She had dark chocolate with the almond. But I figured if I was gonna go for dark chocolate,
No, that's different. They're
Good, how are you?
specific to.
You should come along to my office next time. You're looking very springy tonight. You're tougher.
FYI, we went on the schedule for this year. No graduations on Tuesday. And no graduations on May 16th. That's my birthday.
Actually, that's the problem. And then I didn't.
What's wrong with this?
That's my birthday.
Working in the field.
Yes, tomorrow.
Oh, no, we're all gonna sing to her. We're all gonna sing to her. We're all gonna sing to her. The whole arena, they're all just gonna sing to her.
They used to run Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but we got school board Thursday. If I had known that, I would have said, I said, we can do the school board to another day. No, they normally start on Thursday.
I just added that
Friday
to
and
Google Doc right now.
Right now.
No, the special.
But just time is retired too, so Friday.
Well, no, it's already.
I don't know why I kept sharing it, and we probably, but people it might go
We always do, but I mean, I don't think I sent you any
So I don't know.
I sent you, no, you hired us.
You didn't get the email. Okay, I did that too, but I kept sharing it.
We keep a, we keep a spreadsheet.
I just like forget it. It's probably just on here for like.
If you retire and you're like.
Just overall.
Okay, guys, if we can, if everyone's ready, Mr. Tiffin, take the lead. So, we have,
But we can look at it on the agenda space if she's not good. Someone else is gonna have to.
I don't have a gavel, but,
Attention.
Mr. Testman will not be back. He had to go home. So it'll just be 7 of us. Two things that, I'm not sure which order, or if it even matters. One is discussion. We cannot vote tonight. This is discussion on how we want to narrow the process from 8 down to whatever number we decide on. That's a total board decision. I would like to open up with suggestions, if no one minds, that Ken Carrot gave. And I'm not gonna say pro or con, I'll just throw out what he said, and you all can comment yes or no, pro or con on what he said. He said that with the possibility that a couple of people may be looking at other jobs, that he said, I would really be hesitant to narrow it down to as few as 3. He said, that's just him. If we want to redo it to 3, that's fine. We have, Ms. Thurman, am I correct, had a little bit, kind of negative experience going to 3 in the past? And we got down to, and 2 of them dropped out. So that was his rationale. He said that, he also suggested that we choose, this is his suggestion, you all can, it's up to you what you want to do. He suggested that we take our top 5 candidates. And he said by that, he said once again, following his direction that he asked like we did in the opinion poll, he suggested that we not do it in any numeric order. Because not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, our first choice, second, third, fourth, fifth. He said if we were not open to public scrutiny, he said that would be fine. But he said in his experience, when people know ahead of time, if say the 5th person may end up in the face-to-face, be by far the best person. He said quite often, the person is not the top, he said he's gone through with his several examples that they've gone through where they picked, where people picked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the 5th person might be the best, but yet if they are projected to be on the very bottom, quite often they drop out, and they may be the person we want in the long run. Now that was his suggestion, it's up to you. And he said I would bring in more rather than fewer. And he said I would say 4 to 5, but that was, he said, but now it's up to, and we can discuss it, but we can vote on it either at the meeting, at the board meeting Thursday, if we can, is that not correct, we'll have enough time to announce it?
We can put it on there, yeah.
Or we can do it after the last set of Skypes. And it's not what to do, but how to do it.
I would prefer to vote on this Thursday.
Okay.
So we do not, so we don't.
I'm open, whatever you guys think. What do you all think? Are we ready to vote on, you want to discuss?
No, I want to go, are we voting on a process?
A process.
Yeah,
This is just a
yeah,
process,
right, okay.
not the people.
Yeah,
Of course, it's just a process.
So that's probably a good suggestion, because if you wait and vote on it after the final Scotch, then you've gotta have another meeting to do that.
Right.
We'll do that Thursday anyway, I
Set
agree
our
with
process
that.
together.
We'd vote while we're there.
I'm fine with it, but it's up to you guys.
I'm for that.
Kind of consensus, and Rhonda, you've been through this way more than any of us, so.
Yeah, right.
We can yield to your superior experience. Run for your life. Well, I know with one previous candidate, were you on it? That person got down to the final 3 and 2 dropped out, and so one got it by default. So, and not that person wasn't really, who Rhonda wanted anyway, but it's a fact, yeah. So at any rate,
So, okay.
and he also, I'm sorry, let me just say, one other thing he said the specific number will kind of be up to us after we've looked at all 8 candidates.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And he said, I would not narrow it to a certain number until you've seen all the candidates, which I thought was pretty wise too. But he said, I would not, unless there's just 3 that are so far above the others, you don't want them. He said, I would say 4 or 5.
Okay, but we have 8.
Pardon me?
8 candidates.
8 now, 8 currently. And he said there are a couple of them that are considering other positions. And so, keep that in mind so if the others, I personally strongly agree that we not rank the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, because if we do, there's a good chance we may lose the 5th, and that 5th may be the best person.
So the suggestion, okay, because you said a lot, so the suggestion on the table is to rank, once we're done interviewing everybody, to rank said number, because I'm just saying said, we don't know, to rank said number, not even rank, but to list your said number, again, alphabetically order.
The way we did on the opinion polls, alphabetical order.
Now, will we do that,
That's in public now.
oh, I know that.
Okay. Sorry. Okay.
Would we do that at the end of the last set of interviews, or would we do that, when would we do that?
I think, just me, but I think that we needed time to digest it and look over our notes. I mean, all of us have taken notes on all these people. And I would hate to me, it would be reactionary to do it immediately after the last set.
Well, the last set's Monday, so
On the
if we come back
22nd.
by Wednesday, that should have given everybody enough time.
Well, I'll tell you what, this leads into the next thing. What I'm gonna do is, I've already set a District 9 open community forum that I'm gonna have on Thursday. I didn't wanna have it on Wednesday night, a lot of people at church. But and Tuesday, there's several promotion graduation programs going on that month, but our last Skype's on the 22nd. I'm gonna have, I had planned that if you all change it, if you wanna vote that night, then I won't be able to, but I've got a District 9 community forum, set on Thursday the 22nd at Wall Smith.
I wasn't saying.
Thursday the
vote.
25th, I mean.
I wasn't saying to vote on that night, I'm just saying when, like, are we gonna set a time to vote? Are we gonna do this publicly? Cause you know, we've caught a lot of heat.
We're
this whole
definitely gonna do it
email
publicly.
thing, so I'm really not trying to go through that again.
No, me either, me either.
So, I guess I'm just saying when, because if people are trying to have community meetings, are you saying a week out? Or, I mean, cause
We don't know who the people are, that's in the community meeting.
no, well, I think the whole thing about the community meeting is if at that point, all 8 have been interviewed, if they have questions or they have input before you decide on your final 5, to do that. I'm just asking what does the time frame look out, because you've thrown out this date of June 1, which to me is illogical, but.
Well, no,
And then
no,
June
I
1's
should,
out there, so the media's floating that around, I just want some, I know I keep
People in
referring to the
district, you
meeting.
think of sitting, listen to all these candidates all at once.
what I threw out on June 1 was a hypothetical goal. I mean, that's my ideal goal.
So I'd like to ask that we,
I guess I'm just.
I don't know, I think,
What's the logic
I think,
behind it?
well, I'm trying to answer your question, I'm going to the calendar. I would hate to wait an entire week to vote on who our top 5 are. So is it possible to do a vote the week of the 22nd? And are we gonna deliberate about our top 5, like, are we actually talking about why we're choosing?
We can do
Because
that.
to me, it should be some discussion for kind of
I
like.
agree.
For like the vetting.
I agree.
I personally would like to have some input from my district before we discuss, but some of you all may not feel like that's needed.
Well, if you're doing it on the 23rd, then I mean.
23rd's a Friday.
No, 23rd.
23rd's a Tuesday. I'm having a meeting on the 25th.
Yeah,
Because
because the 23rd's a lot of elementary.
there are a lot of elementary promotions, graduations on the 23rd. And Wednesday is a church night for a lot of people who couldn't come. So the first night I could get my district is the 25th. I mean, I can drop that. If you all want to vote on that and meet and vote and discuss, I can drop it.
I'm not even in town that day, so I'm
Okay.
fine with waiting, but I'm just wondering, like, should we do it on the Friday the 26th? Because then the next Monday is Memorial Day, and then Tuesday's the 30th, and now we've already spent over a week without voting or discussing.
I'm willing to go on Friday, but I don't know if everyone else is.
Yeah, I don't know either.
No, I started saying, just gonna throw something out there, Friday's not a good day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Friday's not a good day.
Well,
And-
also, y'all are welcome to also vote without me here, as long as I can send in my vote.
You know, I don't know that it's.
Can she do that? Can she send a proxy vote? If it's, are you on business?
Are you out of town of business? Then the law would allow you to do that. Now, Sherry and I were talking a minute ago, we need to check on policies and be sure that policies are up to date. But if your situation is different from if you were just on vacation.
I'm only gone from the 22nd and 25th, so anyways, if your thing's on the 25th, maybe that doesn't even matter.
I mean, if you're not gonna do it Friday, that Tuesday would be
The first possible, Tuesday,
That's the
the
30th.
30th would be the first
we do
opportunity.
this special call session on the 30th.
I guess I just feel like that's a really long time, but if that's what the rest of the board, if that's the best date for the rest of the board, then I.
Do you all want to work with your district, Cindy, or do you want to go without district input?
I think that, not until we get down to the
Yeah,
final
I
five.
think we
I
should wait until the final
Yeah.
5.
What I have to do is.
Yeah.
And is this me checking to make sure?
I can cancel mine if you all, if all of you want to
You
go.
can if you want to, anybody District 1 that has a thing, they know my email address, and they can email it to me, I don't have to take a principal's time, the elected officials' time, and everything, with everything going on right now, get a principal to stay and keep the school open over, if they just wanna ask questions, and then maybe you go and maybe 10 people show up, and that's usually what happens. And it's just, there's just so much going on right now, I just, until we get down to 5, I mean, people can email me and tell me whatever questions they wanna ask.
Okay, then if we did, I don't mean to interrupt, but I have to, I'm getting to see now, Rob, I have to say things wrong thing. But with that thought in mind, if we're gonna wait till we at least get down to 5, then if you did cancel that meeting to have it later, then.
Could meet on the
why couldn't we meet
25th?
on Thursday, the 25th.
Yeah, Thursday, you would not be able to be there.
I won't, but it's okay, as long as I'm allowed to vote by proxy, I don't mind at all, I would gladly catch.
I have a question.
Are you sure?
I have a question about the vote.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, the main thing is you get the vote.
So,
Ms. Ms. Jones has a question, guys.
For the, I know this. Okay. So for, like, if you weren't here to interview the candidate, how do you vote on it?
Watch the videos, I guess?
Yeah.
Watch the YouTube,
Watch these.
Skype
Yeah.
videos.
Yeah.
You're thinking of like Joe Smith's
Yeah, I'm just, I don't know.
You talking about what we just did?
Well,
Yeah,
Like
but I
last
mean-
week, I went straight back home after we got done in Nashville, went to my hotel room and I sat there and I watched
exactly.
2 hours of interviews, I mean.
And Chris,
Life
next
is
week,
boring, isn't it, for you?
and next week I will, about you were talking to Scott.
Motel.
Is that a new bed sheet?
So that's what I'm like, I had a major surgery, so I understand. I'm just trying to figure out the rules.
Is that our policy?
That's what I'm saying, what is the policy? Because last year when I had my mastectomy, I had to come. And I was slimmed up, I had to be here when we was talking about Uruguay. I couldn't call in, I couldn't do any of it. So I'm just asking, what's the deal? I mean, I just wanna make sure, because I don't want them to come back and it's like, we didn't, whatever. I just wanna make sure that's clear.
Sure, the state law says that a school board member can participate remotely if, there's a family an out-of-town family emergency, military service, or, going out of town for employment.
Okay,
It's very restrictive.
okay, I just wanted to make sure.
That's not our policy, that's state law.
Right, I just wanna make sure that if we.
About our policy, you know, about,
I was talking to Sherry, I need to double check to be sure that and it may be that we need to do a policy amendment Thursday to allow you to do it, but we've got time to do it.
Well, just check that out, because we need to make it available.
I was gonna say, we just wanna make sure, I just don't want no fouls.
What about Joe Smith though? Is he in town on the 25th? Because he's not in town on the 22nd.
he's,
When's he coming back? It's 14th through the 29th.
14th, I think it's 14th through the 29th. He said he would try to get his wife to drive down and get him. He'd have to dock his boat and try to come get him.
I'm gonna call her.
She may say knock that boat yourself.
Well, I'm just saying, he may not be available to vote anyways. I guess we'll have to just find out. But I would love for us to tentatively do it on the 25th, but if we need to wait till the next week, I mean.
That's fine, I just don't want
I
nobody to
hate
be,
though for it to be dragged
I
out.
don't want it to be no.
Because then, so after we vote, the next step will be to fly in the candidates, is that correct?
Correct.
And how much lead time do we need in order to get that arranged?
Yeah, okay, that's another good question, Ms. Ford. I mean, none of us, Rhonda's been with it as a board member, but none of us have done on setting it up. Here's another thing I talked to Ken about, and let me just run it by you guys, you can comment. You know, if you want public input, he said there's 2 or 3 ways you can do it. He said, one, you can do it like in, get 2 candidates a day. He said he would suggest no more than 90 minutes. He said 2 hours is way too long. He said it's way too long. No more than 90 minutes was his suggestion. And he said you can do on the face-to-face 2 in one evening or 3 on a Saturday. He said you can if you want to. And he said if you're wanting to have a meet and greet, you can have one candidate doing a meet and greet while the other is doing a face-to-face interview. Which he said and those are suggestions that he's done in other places in flip-flop. And you could even have 3 meet and greets going on at the same time. Say hypothetically get the Chamber, Benwood, Unified Ed maybe, you know, to have a meet and greet, and they could talk to community members and share things with them, and you know, if you guys want to do that. Now, but I mean, those were Ken's suggestions that I'm just throwing out. The man, I've been on speed dial that man for about 3 months, trying to get ideas from him and make sure things are going.
I'm fine with whatever the process is on that front, as long as, specifically, this is gonna sound selfish, but specifically that my district has access to wherever those meet and greets are. And honestly, I have a district that a lot of people do not have transportation.
Well, I was thinking, this is just me, but I was thinking that perhaps we might have one, maybe at Bessie Smith Hall, which is, you know, pretty much central downtown, maybe one out in the Ooltewah, East Brainerd area, and maybe one in the Hickson Sadie Daisy area. Those are just my thoughts. Those are just my thoughts. But now, that's totally me. I throw it out. If you don't like it, throw it out. But I thought, and that way each candidate could rotate into a couple of those places.
I'd probably, like Kristen just said, I'd probably prefer to be in schools, but I get what you're saying, and I appreciate that.
And I'm trying to And it could be in a school, or it could be in a church, you know,
I
I,
done in schools until it got down to the very, like the
I
last
mean, 'cause
three
the
or
schools are
something.
free, like,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
the
what I was
Betsy,
thinking.
I mean, you're gonna have to rent that.
You're gonna have to.
oh, are you?
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
that's what I'm saying, like, so if we could utilize the
Yeah,
building.
Brown's right up the middle, right up
Yeah.
the street from.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
fine.
you can utilize.
Brown Academy then, that'd be
the
fine.
school
Yeah.
buildings,
Yeah, school buildings are great. I didn't think about having to rent Bessie Smith, but it's true, we
so
would.
you have to rent that.
That's true, I knew that, I just wasn't thinking about
And
it.
so that's the money that you was.
But that general area though, is what I'm saying. Or we could go with the churches or schools, you know, whatever, but we can, now, do you guys want to vote on the process on Thursday? Think about it, and so Ms. Ford, can you add that to the agenda? Yes, ma'am.
So, okay, so once we get to that level, where's the 5 or 4 or whatever? What is our process for vetting this? And I just have to say, I have a lot of heartburn over this whole process, because I feel like we all over the place and it's sloppy, and I've never interviewed the way we interview them. So, I just wanna say that I think we need some type of, I feel like we have a due diligence to do this the right way, and not to look like we just flying by the seat of our tails or whatever it is. But I think we need some type of scoring rubric or some type of evaluation, like how are we vetting these people? Because right now, I understand, I get this, we're already here, this is what we're doing. But at the next stage, when we're trying to get down to a final 2 or a final 3 or to a 1 or whatever that next number is, I think we need some type of scorecard or evaluation form, and I think there should be a set of standard, maybe 2 to 3 questions that we're asking, and then we build upon that, because I think, and I took notes, because I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about this, honestly, I do. I think that, these questions and these interview scorecards provide a more consistent and fair and objective way of doing this, because interpersonal skills, certain things are gonna be subjective anyway, but I think there are certain things that we have to remain objective about, because if not, we run into getting opinions from people, but you want opinions from your community, so forth and so on, but you don't want those biases or those opinions to build what you're trying to decide on, because we didn't have a template or something that we're going by to be fair. Also, I think litigation wise, I mean, I don't want nobody to come back and say, well, we weren't asked that question, or how did they do that? That weight is heavier than, I think we need some type of structure.
Now, on that thought, but when we get it down to, do we not need to ask the same questions all the way around?
That's what I'm
everybody?
saying, it should be a
I'm with
standard set
that.
of questions.
When we get down to,
Well, when you get down to 3 or something like that, yeah.
that's what I'm
But
talking
I
about.
think it levels the playing field, it creates for good quantitative base, you gotta have some structure, we looking like a issue.
Well,
We can't be.
Well, everybody's looking for a different thing in the
Every-
system.
Well, I know that, but
something different that you
what I'm
want
saying
to
is,
do.
and I get this, I kill a lot of trees, but I bought examples, what I'm saying is, it's 3 different rubrics, and we can figure out what we wanna put in
I
that
don't need a
rubric.
rubric to tell me what I'm looking for in a superintendent. I'm not gonna answer questions, yes.
I understand that, Rhonda, I'm just saying you gotta have some type of, and maybe it's just me, I know maybe I'm the only person that interview for jobs, I don't know, I know we got business owners in here, people that interviewed a long time ago, they retired, whatever, but I'm telling you, in any setting, when I'm interviewing, they taking notes on me on a set of piece of paper, and they doing it on the same person every time they come in there. We gotta have some type of structure, or we looking like we flip-flopping, and then it's skewed. It's gonna look skewed.
It's skewed when we ask the same question time after time, when it's
Right.
live streamed and every, and the.
Well, that's different, but I'm talking about when we get to those last questions,
But it's still.
and we don't have to, okay, that's fine. I'm just telling you, it looks like
I
a
understand,
mess.
I understand what you're saying, but I think too.
Any HR professional will tell you, you're gonna need a set of standard questions. Any HR person, I live with one, I've asked my job, I've asked several friends, everybody is saying, you need some type, you can build off of it, but when you get to those points, you're gonna have to have some type of set standard, y'all.
Say something.
Joe?
Yeah.
Chris, I understand what you're saying as far as us asking the same set of questions. But, and that does make sense, that is, we're gonna ask those finalists the same set of questions. But when it comes time to vote, my vote's not going to be determined by a rubric that I add up or I do the points
Well, I'm
on.
not saying that, but I'm saying to give something
Okay,
to
well,
show support. A consistent thing, that's all I'm saying.
Right, the
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
consistency
I
of the
apologize.
questions, and I guess my thing is, are you talking about how we're going to vote? You keep saying vetting. The vetting is, do they have the proper qualifications? Do they meet a background check? Do they fit the job description, is the vetting part? Am I misspeaking here? Or is that
No.
not the definition of vetting? And so we just paid a firm $60,000 to vet. So when we get to this point, it's not about vetting, it's about how are we gonna go about selecting a candidate, which would be voting on a candidate. So I hear you on that part. Yes, we do need to have a consistent set of questions that we ask each individual. And then everybody needs to know how we're going to come up with, our selection as far as, if we vote 1 through 3 or 1 through 5, or how many points do we assign to that, because we're using multiple candidates like we have on other things before. But as far as scoring that individual on a scorecard,
That's you.
Bless you.
I just brought some examples to show y'all. From what I'm getting feedback from my community, I haven't been on Facebook in 3 months. I got tagged in a post where a community member literally asked this specific question. People are asking this. I'm saying, and maybe I'm wrong,
Look, can I ask you one question? What about the process so far has been a mess?
from what I've heard from the community I represent, everything is, they're finding out everything after the fact. The communication, how are we doing it, the process. I'm just saying, it looks sloppy.
Okay, but.
I mean, that's just me, and that's what I'm getting.
Okay.
But I'm also, that's what I'm getting. I'm just being honest with you.
Yes,
I'm just
struggle.
sharing the emails and the texts and the calls I'm getting from teachers, community members. I'm just saying.
Well, let me tell you
So I'm
something,
just
community
sharing.
members don't realize how many hours we sit doing this crap, doing all this crap, reading all this stuff, getting online, looking up these people, doing all this. If that looks messy to them, I'm sorry. We are working our tails off, trying to do this right, and just because they don't see it or they don't know when a meeting is, doesn't mean we're doing this sloppy. Maybe it's not as smooth as it has been, we don't pick a superintendent every. Trust me, I've been through 3 of these, and every time you feel like you're being blindsided by something. It feels like the first time. You ask me all these questions, and I'm having to go back in my brain and try to figure it out. And I tell you what, anybody that thinks they can do a better job than any of us 9, we all come up for election every few years, and they're welcome to run. This is not easy, it's not pleasant, and we're never gonna do anything to keep everybody in our district happy. I was elected to represent my District 1. Anybody in District 1 that wants to call me knows my phone number, knows my email. They can tell me what they want to know about candidates. But right now, they're expecting me to do my due diligence and get it narrowed down to where we can have 3 to 5 candidates that they can look at, and then they can tell me how they feel about it. But right now, I am not gonna have a meeting and let
I'm not talking
10
about a meeting.
people show up and give me 10.
But I didn't say anything about a meeting. I'm talking
I'm
about.
saying,
I'm
to
talking
get all
about
this
interviews.
input from all of these people, and this, I'm like Joe,
I'm
I am
done.
not,
Whatever y'all wanna do.
I'm not gonna sit up and add up and say, okay, this guy's getting it, because he's got 20, and this other guy's got 32.
But
That's just
we've got 9 different.
I mean, you can do that if you
No,
want to,
I'm
I'm just telling you, I'm
not
not going
saying
to.
about a meeting, I'm just saying that we need to have a more structured interview process, y'all, that's just bottom line. You ask any HR professional, I'm just saying, I'm not crazy here, I'm not.
Do you agree that, or does anyone else agree that we should maybe create a set of questions for the next, like for the top 5?
But here's, yes, no doubt, here's the thing though. Here's
I'm good, whatever,
okay.
I'm going for majority, whatever majority wants.
Here's
I'm
the
just
deal.
done with it.
The process that's going on right now is an opportunity for the 10, who we all determine should be the 10, okay, to be able to tell them a little bit about themselves and for us to get a feel for them on Skype. This is not anywhere close to being a final interview process of whether they're tough questions, easy questions, the questions that somebody in my district might want me to ask. That has nothing to do with it. It's an opportunity for me to see someone's face, for me to understand and see how they interact interpersonally, how they, whether I agree with their answers or don't agree with their answers, for me to understand a little bit about them and begin to understand, do I want to pursue this any further? And I think for me the frustration is, when we talk about this thing looking like it's thrown together, the deal is this. I'm so tired of hearing about secret private emails and secret votes. There's nothing that the public doesn't know that we don't know. There's no part of that. And it's been thrown around that we deliberated.
No.
I deliberated with myself and made a list of 10 in
And I
alphabetical
sent them
order
to a second
and
team.
emailed
I agree
those
with you.
in.
I agree
And
with you.
now, here's the other thing. It's public. Now, the fact that it didn't get made public as quickly as some might have wanted, that's not my problem. But there's nothing that's hidden, there's nothing that's not known. Now, all this is, again, is, and you, listen, I challenge anybody in the room. People go, we don't know how you came up with the 10. Math's universal, guys and gals.
Yeah.
You can put 100 points to the top 5 and 2 points to the bottom 5, however you want to try to spin that. The top 10 are going to be the top 10. Okay? It doesn't change. So, you know what? I don't know how they came up with the top 10. It doesn't matter to me. The top 10's the top 10. If I put 6 lima beans by this group and 2 peas by that group, the top 10's still going to be the top 10. It doesn't make any difference.
Because we all did the same thing.
But see that
And
doesn't.
we didn't send it to Steve Highland.
That doesn't sensationalize it like it needs to be sensationalized, okay? And so, and those names were sent to our board attorney. And so there's nothing that's been done that no one knows about. Not only that, but everybody's top 10 lists are out there. So again, take those lists any way you want to and run the funny math any way you want to. It's coming out that way. So whether people agree with how it's been done or not been done, whatever, the deal is this. We got to get it down to whatever we decide our number is. And then Caritza, listen, I hope you know and have been around me long enough. We get down to that final 5. This is as important to me as it is to you guys. I'm going to be as professional as I know how to be in this process. And if we need to ask the same 10 questions or the same 2 questions or whatever it is, we'll do that. But I'm not going to score somebody. I'm going to hear their answer, and then I'm going to determine whether or not
You're saying subjective judgment
See what I'm
rather
saying?
than-
Well,
It's not going to be objective.
And
It just
typically,
can't be.
It can't be objective, I don't think.
But
When you're voting, it's
Yeah.
not
It's
objective.
going to be more personal because you're going to be in the room with
Yeah,
them.
and
And that's
typically
huge.
in
It
executive
is huge.
search, typically you don't use a rubric, but I understand where Chris is coming from. I do like your suggestion though of using the same questions
I
for
do
a
too.
person, because then we have something to go off of, but I will say that whatever those questions are, we need to be really thoughtful with those questions, and they need to be very, very high level important questions, because it can't just be like, hey, what's your favorite color? It's gotta be.
Well, and Rhonda may get a great question, and she says to her email, and Rhonda can say, this came from my community. And I think it's an awesome question.
So I guess on Thursday, when we vote on what our next steps are gonna be, will that be part of our vote?
I would think so.
Okay, maybe how we come
Now,
up with the 10.
the couple of other things that we need to bring in here. One is the references that they've given. Now, how do you want us to go about giving a formal feedback from the references? Shall I ask, this is a lot to put on this board, shall we ask her to ask for formalized references? I think we owe them the fact to look at their references.
What does that look like for those candidates? Whenever you do that and you give us that information, is it then public information?
I would think it would, yeah, it would have to be. Would it not, Mr. Bennett? It would have to be.
But you gotta consider that they're not gonna give you somebody's name that's gonna get them that.
True.
Yeah, they're not gonna, yeah.
Is that not something that Ken Carrot can do for us?
I can ask him, he's in Syracuse, New York right now.
But that's all right, he has staff.
He is
And we're paying him.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
he
would
has
think-
staff.
I would think that the search firm should do
Would
that.
you contact this company tomorrow, if that's a consensus with everyone?
And I actually
She'll,
think that you'll get more honest, I
I do
think there
too.
might be more honest answers from, the search firm versus Sherry, who has an
True.
HCDE,
True.
you know, name by her.
great, I'm all for it. Let me throw out one thing that, person who's not in my district, actually, I think in your district, Kathy, that projected and said that there was a problem that when we asked the same questions, and I sent an email out to all of you, I said, try to rephrase your questions, or if a question is not appropriate for a certain person, to change it. And the reason I did that was with a gentleman who's an earned PhD that dealt with, that had said, you know, when they can see and hear the questions of people prior, that gives a decided advantage. And you know, if I was going to interview for this job, you know, if I was going to do it, I would have Ms. Lennon, my friend, go, and while I was doing the meet and greet, I'd say, find out what questions they have and give me a chance to answer them. So you're giving a decided advantage, we are giving a decided advantage, and we're giving decided advantage to those who Skype last.
Well, then too, then you have different backgrounds, like you wouldn't wanna ask the same question to
Exactly.
somebody who had an education background to to Mr. Johnson, who has a business background.
Right.
You would have totally different kinds of questions.
Right.
Because he couldn't possibly have the knowledge that.
I mean, I had heard that Dr. Johnson was, that he was being interviewed for a national position, and I asked him that question instead of one that I thought was unfair to him on how to deal with special ed kids, which he's never dealt with.
Yeah, are you talking specifically about this round, our like first go of questions? That's what your email was pertaining to?
That was speaking of this round.
Yes.
This round.
Well, I agree, and tonight I didn't ask, well, I might have asked one of the same questions as last week, but these candidates were just very different than last week.
And that was just merely a suggestion that we change our questions to make it fair for all candidates. And that was just merely a suggestion to each of you. I think I phrased it as that way.
I changed all mine. I think I'm gonna tell you folks, I think we can all say, we've been as fair in this as we can be in everything we've done. We're spending time talking about now how to be more fair. My goodness. You know, there's always gonna be people that don't like it. I'm with Ron on one thing. We were elected to make some decisions. And when Joe made a great point a while ago, the time to come in and take this input from the community on our emails and stuff is after we get it down somewhere,
Yeah.
where they can ask us something, and we can say, hey, that really is a good question.
Yes.
Or as many of them will be, really isn't much of a question, but we're gonna find some good ones in there we can use. So, but I'm telling you, I don't, people, I got my church the other day asked me about, said, man, how do you put up with all this? I said, because I know I'm doing the right thing. I mean, every one of you are. We're doing exactly what we need to be doing, and that's trying to treat everybody as fairly as we can.
With respect.
With respect, and be honest, and ask them things that we need knowledge about. And I'll just tell you, after that, I don't care what everybody thinks. That's just the way I am.
I want to tell you, I talked to 2 HR directors, and I know Chris has talked to them. I talked to 2 HR directors, and they said it would be horrible business practice to release all 14 of those names and give those 14 people, the ones that are not going to, the opinions that were given, that we did not need to do that. They said it's horrible business practice, totally unfair to them to let them out early, and I'll take the heat for it. I followed what my HR friends and the state attorney said to do, and I don't mind taking the heat for it. But I try to be fair to people, and I also try to be fair on not giving out the names of who made the opinion cut and who did not before they were reached by the company to let them know. I mean, I didn't want them to see it on TV or in the paper before they got contacted. That's horrible relations.
Okay, so Thursday, we're voting on our next steps. Are we also voting on like some type of community input plan? Because I know that's the other thing we want to talk about.
We're discussing that now.
Okay, all right.
Do we need to vote on
I
that?
don't know. I don't know.
But we are gonna ask Ms. Ford to contact the search company to look for formalized answers to the.
What exactly do you want me to have them to do?
Ask them to see if they can accumulate and send to.
So they want to send to me.
To you?
The reference responses.
The
for
reference
the
responses.
Okay.
And, would it be possible for us to get a packet of those? Just if we could get a packet for
When
each
do you
candidate?
want it?
Pardon me?
What's your timeline?
Well, before we make a decision on the last 5 or whatever we decide. I think we owe them a chance to look at their references.
So if we got it on the 23rd,
Yeah.
and then I got it to you guys by email on the 23rd, that'd give you time before the 25th to look at it. Is that time enough?
Yeah.
Is that? Okay.
But the 25th is we're gonna vote on the process.
No.
Narrow it down.
No, when you vote on your candidates.
Vote on candidates.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The candidates go
Thursday's
You're
the
right.
process.
You're right. This Thursday is the process. The following Thursday is the candidate.
Now, what about the community input? What is the process?
I wanted to do the community input after Skypes, but according to you guys, will do it. I would still like to do my district, instead of Skypes, I'll do it after we do face-to-face, I guess. I think we need a few days to digest it.
But you're gonna vote on the 25th to narrow it down to
Narrow it
5.
down, how narrow-
So then you have
or whatever.
time to think about the community input.
Right.
No, we have to get through graduations. I mean, I know everybody's,
I know, we've all got a lot of graduations.
and.
Promotions
So
and,
we're really talking about not flying anybody in probably until like first week of June, May at the earliest, probably, okay. So, I guess I feel like as far as community input goes, I feel like the only like truly thing that we can really do is whenever we fly them in, do forums,
Yeah.
like 90-minute forums. And the only other thought that I had on that is maybe the stakeholder groups that came together together with
Yes,
Ken Carrick's
I
group,
agree.
maybe we just bring those people in to meet with the candidates, but I just don't understand how much time we're gonna have with the candidates, that's why it's hard for me to
Well,
wrap my head around how we really
Ken,
do this.
Ken
part.
said that he felt like he talked to almost 200 people, community leaders and people, every group. We tried our best to involve every single community group. I mean, we got Chattanooga 2-0, we got Benwood, we got legislators, we got different communities from different districts.
PTA.
And, yeah, I mean, up and down the line. He and Sherry and I worked very hard to get every possible facet of the community that we could possibly get in there.
Even adding the legislators the last day.
I,
whatever.
if we were gonna go to that, it's because I know before, like, we had something at the choo-choo, we had
Yes.
something at the,
Is
remember,
it all
we
like
had
one
something.
day per candidate, is that like, each case is 24
No, I
hours?
mean, we waited till we got down to like 3, so it was a little bit easier to invite them in and do it, these 3. I mean, you can't have this kind of thing, do it with 5 and then turn around and do it again with 3 and stuff.
Right.
It just gets to be so expensive for one thing, you know, you can get some people, some businesses that want to, sponsor it.
Yeah, sponsor.
And that kind of thing, and you could maybe do the last 3, you know, do it for, you know, 1 week, maybe have it on a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, something like that, maybe in 1 week. And the community that wants to come, you know, we'll have them different parts of towns and, you know,
So I have
one a
question.
day. You wouldn't do all 3 at once, we never did that, I don't think, I think we did.
Well,
Did we do all 3 of them at once?
I
I can't remember, but I've done it.
I think 2 times ago, yeah, and it made for a long day, I think y'all decided never to do that.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So does that mean that we're gonna fly top 5 in and then fly the top 3 in, so 3 people will fly in twice?
And they coming from, well, I mean, the places
Well,
they're from,
wherever, but that,
Some of them are not, but
Is
some
that
of them will, but
Oh, well, like
that's my
the border
question
people
as
have to
well. I mean, that's gonna be a lot of money.
Yeah.
Is that
Because you
what
gotta
y'all
fly
have
them in, you gotta pay all their expenses, their,
cause I'll be honest, like,
Overnight.
once we get to 5, honestly, I think I'm probably ready to vote on who I want.
I would be,
After
I feel that way
five,
too.
Is that, do y'all normally do 5 and then tear it down?
I feel like if we get to
No,
5,
we
I
got,
can.
we got 5, they pared themselves down.
Oh, okay, and that could happen.
Well, I thought we just said if you pare it down to 3, you put yourself in a little bit of
You
jeopardy.
put yourself in jeopardy if you go down to 3. Would you agree with that, Ms.
Right.
Summer?
That's fine, I mean,
I think
I'd probably be ready to vote.
I mean, I just can't imagine her any longer, but, I don't need something.
Yeah, 5's fine.
Yeah, I agree, I don't think we need to bring them in.
No, we're
Bring them in one time.
Bring 3 in again, yeah, I agree.
Well, I'll just tell you this, at Chat State, going through our recent presidential search,
Yeah,
they brought in 4 candidates, and those 4 candidates all had a different day. And of course, that happened on our campus, but they put them in the humanities auditorium. It was heavily advertised for the community and the faculty and the
That's what I
staff.
would suggest.
Hey, it's at 2:30 today. It was also Skyped, and it was emailed to everybody afterwards, so if you had a class and you couldn't get there. But boom, and then after that, man, they were making decisions on who it was gonna be.
Would you all want to go 1 candidate per day?
Yes.
yeah,
That's easier to digest,
Yes.
yeah, I
but
think so too.
Yep.
it's easier to deal with.
Yeah.
it's easier to deal with that. Now, do we wanna have a public forum with the candidate the day he or she comes in?
Did you have you're talking public forum, are you talking question answer, formal type thing? Did you just have a meet and greet? Or did you have a formal?
They were able to, they were introduced, they were able to talk about themselves, you know, obviously their vision or
Right.
whatever it was, I don't remember what the time frame was, and then there was a Q&A
Okay.
after that.
I think you get as much information that way as any, because after someone's talking about themselves, if you still have questions, those are the ones you ask. And there's no need to ask them ahead of time, till you hear from them. So I think that's great, I think that'd be a thing to do.
I'm still thinking, I'd love to have my community, if I have time
Well,
to
the
open it.
community can come when they're there.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
That's their opportunity when you bring the candidate in.
I agree.
That's-
I'll cancel my D9 meeting.
Well, I mean, you do whatever, I'm just.
Well, it's scheduled today, we're gonna be,
There's too much going on right now to tie the principal's time anymore.
Mr. Chairman, one thing, your policy says that you give 15 days public notice before you hire a superintendent.
that's true.
State law doesn't require that. It's 15 days, state law says 15 days notice to extend the contract, but your policy is more in favor of notice. So it's possible if you wanted to have the forum, the fora,
gonna stick to the 15-day policy, then hypothetically, say we interview all 5 candidates first week of June. I'm just throwing that out, if we could. Then and the June, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but, okay,
That
what,
would be the week of June fifth, I guess, the first school
I guess so.
week. Yeah, okay.
So it'd be the
Why-
5th through the 9th.
2 weeks later, you'd be voting then.
2 weeks,
You voted on the 15th.
Well, and bear in
Well,
mind
if
too,
you had on
Mr.
the
Chairman,
school
that
board meeting.
Right.
you could give the notice anytime you want. So you don't have to wait until the last interview to give the notice.
That's true.
It's just
Yeah.
that, it's just
That's
that,
true.
it's, if you give the notice, now theoretically, but what I'm saying is your policy assumes that you're gonna think about this a little bit. That gives you time to have your.
That's the intent of the policy, the 15 days. So hypothetically, if we went, say we started interviews on the 5th, then we could say 15 days would be the 20th. We could call for a vote on the 20th,
Yeah, that's a Tuesday, that's fine.
Yeah.
on the Tuesday. It's all tentative and
Yes, if
getting
they
our.
all get in here on the.
Right.
Yeah.
And my desire for June 1st was not written in blood. It was just my ultimate goal. I would have loved that. But
Are we, okay, I'm good with June 20th, I'm just curious, like, if we were to go past that, are we potentially gonna lose candidates because of the whole, like, they're gonna need to be here for like so many days for school year starts, just thinking about.
if we can get in by June 20th, I think if we can get them in by June 20th, they'll have the last, even if they'll have July and they'll have a
Well,
month.
what if we interviewed everyone the week of June 5th through the 9th, is there not any reason why we wouldn't have enough time to do it on June 15th?
We have to announce it.
Yeah.
But I mean, did you say you could announce it
Yeah, I mean, you could announce it today,
today that we're gonna be doing it on the 15th?
but, yeah.
And
Will that give
if
us,
they weren't ready, they could cancel it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So.
Let's do that.
we could do
Yeah.
Yeah.
tentative, we
That's what
wouldn't,
I would like,
Yeah.
but
And then that way, if we're not ready.
if we're not ready, we can
Yeah.
postpone it.
So let's announce it and do
That's
it on the
good.
15th.
But so we're gonna do an interview every day, June 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th.
Yeah.
5 days, right?
Of course, we've
Well,
got to
well,
consider
it's
whether
according to
or not
their
they can come in,
availability.
but
If
yeah,
they can come.
yeah.
Okay,
I'm not in town on the 8th and the 9th.
Sir?
I'm not in town on the 8th and the 9th, and it's not for a business trip. It's for church, it's for our church youth group, and I work in church ministry, and I obligated myself 2 months ago to go.
Yeah, you gotta go.
So I have to
You've
go,
gotta
I
go
don't
back.
give, I can't do that about no kids, I don't like kids.
I understand, you gotta do that.
Well, okay, so you're gone,
The 8th and 9th.
you're gone the 8th and 9th, okay, so what if we do it, are we talking about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then what
Maybe we
about
could do 2 in one day.
Yeah.
or we could do Monday and Tuesday the next,
That's true, we could just do 2 in one day for
or
the.
2 in one day, yeah.
If we get the 5th and 6th, I would prefer not to do Wednesday, but I can work it out if I have to. But, you know, the Ken said no more than 90 minutes, he said you get blasted physically, emotionally.
I'm happy to not have it longer than 90 minutes.
Yeah.
We're gonna be.
So,
Okay.
so 2 on the 5th,
Anyways.
So 5th, 6th, and 7th, then we'll have, I mean,
Yes.
we'd have to go that, and we'll have to have 2 days at 2.
Yes.
Because there's gonna be 5 people.
But sure, you'll have to determine that once you see availability.
And you see the availability,
Yeah.
yeah.
and the backup dates would be, say, the 12th, 13th?
Well, it'll have to be.
The backup
If you
dates,
want to vote on the 15th, yes.
and that vote is gonna be, assuming we're prepared, the majority of us are prepared to vote.
Yeah.
Right, which, again, that could be canceled, but at least if you are, then we've got it in
Then,
place, so we
yes,
can do
if
it.
we're ready, we can vote on the 15th.
Do we need, okay, we're looking at 5, are we going to vote for 1? Scott, what, are we gonna, when we get down to the vote,
Yeah.
I mean, this is our discussion time.
Yeah.
Are we gonna say, here is the one I want, and then we go till we get a majority?
Well, that's what we did with the search firm, right?
Yep, that's what, I think that's a precedent we've set, but in other words, don't do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but go, we'll vote for the one we want, and then we get down and we'll have 2 or 3 rounds, we'll get a majority.
So we just sit there and vote and narrow them down.
Vote and narrow them down.
Are you saying do a weighted vote?
No. The choice that you have. If I want Tiffany Robinson, I vote Tiffany Robinson. And Rhonda wants Kathy Lennon, she votes Kathy Lennon. We get down to we'll take off the lowest vote getter.
Oh, I see, I
And
see, I
get-
see.
So when you start out, if 5 people want the same person.
It's a done deal.
We're done.
Okay,
If
so-
5 want one person, it's a done deal.
Okay.
I mean, that's the precedent we've set, but I'm throwing it out. This is not an edict.
Whoever,
This is
whoever gets
discussion.
is gonna have to have 5 votes, so.
It's the same way that you elect an officer for the board. You do, I vote for, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then, and what you do, if you're all over the place, you take however many number of votes you need to get to a majority. You
Right.
vote between those.
Exactly.
Okay, Scott, but you just said something. You said I vote 1, 2, 3, 4.
No, District 1, District 2, District 3.
I got you.
Yeah, I'm
Each,
sorry.
each district's
catch.
only voting for one
Right.
individual.
Correct.
Good catch, Joe.
And then
Correct.
just pare it down, so like if one candidate doesn't get any votes, they automatically.
They're gone.
That's why I wanted this discussion out now.
Because
so that the
that's not
discussion-
how we did the search firm. How we did the search firm was we listed it in rank order and then
Right.
we assigned a weighted value
Right.
and then we started paring it down.
Right.
But if we do it this way, if the first one we vote on gets 4 votes, then we go to the second one,
Mhm.
okay? Or 3
Correct.
votes, or 1 or 2, whatever it is. But as soon as somebody gets 5,
What's that
We
called?
should be done.
Is there a name for that?
I like it.
It's just voting. I mean, it's just.
But if, like Joe said, if it's
It's popular
4-3-2,
It's not electoral college, it's
I'm
possible.
trying to take
Yeah.
notes, so-
if it's 4-3-2, 4-3-2, we drop, whoever gets 2 votes will drop out, and whoever gets 4 and 3 will vote again for their top choice.
The technical term is first past the post, but you don't care.
And if we don't get anybody that gets 5, we have to start all over again.
yep,
Yeah, that's right.
So
If
when
we
they,
don't get anybody that has 5,
nobody gets 5, we start all over.
Yeah.
Right.
when the 5 come, do they do like a tour of schools, or do they spend any time with like the central office staff, like, do they do any of that, or is it just?
I thought Ann said that they did tour the schools, so that she took them around to some of the schools. And of course, I mean, if they're gonna be here, they should.
If possible,
wouldn't
them
they
all.
be-
No, maybe
Yeah.
just like a couple, I guess those are details we can figure out for the next couple of years, I was just
I
curious.
just think we need to have the meetings in one of the nice, we wanna have the big room like Middle Valley, elementary, some of the new schools in different
I
parts of
agree. It
town.
needs to be-
It has a real big room that people can come in. and
Yeah, that'd be great.
talk to them, somewhere like that.
Yeah, Middle Valley would be a good one for that in the county, and, we could do, Little United Methodist has been real open for letting us come there if we want to do it sort of between yours and mine. And I'd like to see something downtown too.
Orchard Knob.
Orchard Knob Baptist would be great.
Elementary is
Yeah,
great.
elementary, yeah.
They're generate, they're,
Yeah, they have a
That's
big
right.
area.
they're out of storage.
The schools are out, so then we.
Yeah, I think that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
All
Of
right.
course, we have to find out about the rights and for it and all that.
That's true, we can find out the schedule on that.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, or hurry up.
So-
Hurry up and get it down.
So, just get everything straight. We have, this coming Thursday, we will vote on,
On the process,
On the
so
process.
somebody needs to have that, whatever your process is gonna be, written down
I'm
and
happy
motion
to,
it.
I'm happy to plan to have it typed out, cause I just wrote the whole thing down, so I'll
Thank
type it
you.
up.
thank you.
Great copy, if you need to get it to it, fine, but I just wrote everything down.
Great,
I'll
thank
bring
you.
it.
So we'll depend on you to do that.
All right.
And you're gonna contact
I will
Coleman
contact-
Lou
Yes.
or the
The
references.
yes.
And
And then
make-
I've got on my notes to notice on the first, that on the 15th, or I guess I should do it on May the 30th.
So right now, our decision day tentatively is the
If they can come
15th.
in.
Yes.
I think it's good to work backwards,
I do
and we
too.
are holding ourselves accountable. to
Yeah,
it.
and if we're not prepared, the majority are not prepared, say, I'm just not ready, then we can postpone it.
Steve, I thought you said the decision day was the 20th.
No,
backed it up.
15th, we'll change
And
it.
originally we did,
Okay.
we backed up by
Because
preference
that's
to the
board
15th.
meeting anyway.
So she's not
Oh,
gonna be
smart.
Yeah.
Smart.
And
Sorry,
if-
just
and
saying.
if it's-
On the, just the
Yeah, I'll
next
do it on the
Yeah.
She
30th.
will be here on the 15th,
It's only, it's the 8th through the 10th.
8th through the 10th.
She's gonna be at
11, 8th
Hey,
through 11.
church,
I'm really not, I'm gonna be in Atlanta at the Maxed Out Youth Conference.
See,
Hey.
I'll be at YouTube.
God's business is important, Teresa.
it's fun.
Bless you, sister, God's business is
Eight,
important.
nine.
And I'm not.
Good.
That's okay.
Anything else, any other business we need?
Go home.
We
I'm out
need
of
to look
battery
at-
power. Board be over,
Okay,
please.
pray for wisdom, guys. Pray for wisdom.
I'm out of battery power. Yes, I know. Well, dude, and that whole thing is such a meeting on a Tuesday, yeah.